George and Seb rolling down the road. RGT riding shotgun, a heavy load. Pastor Longhorn waiting to unfold. In El Paso, Texas, tales been told. One arm big, a sight to see. Pastor preach, set you free. George and Seb, they bend the knee. RGT nodding yes in glee.
Hello and welcome to the Unofficial Controller Podcast, your weekly gaming podcast, episode number, I think, don't quote me on this, well, you're going to quote me on this, episode number 247. How can a show this mediocre be going this long? I know, it's a question I ask myself on a daily basis. This week with me, George, joined by Seb, a.k.a. the Triple S, hero to my absolute zero.
You've done that one before. I refuse to accept that. Let's do a retake.
Push pop to my pull pop. How's it going?
I can do that. It's going pretty well. What about yourself?
Been off for a little while. So grateful to you and Scotty for doing the cult duties while I've been off. Obviously, Pastor Longhorn still needs his spuds doing, still needs a cream in his dry skin. I've got to try and remember the law that the heft of law that Scotty's sort of added to the pastor care package. So we've done his dry skin. I think you cut his nails. I think I'm meant to have done his deep bath and his skin debriding.
He's missing out on all the fun outside of the gate, isn't he?
Well, I've never known a guy so desperate to get in a cult, then so desperate to get out of the cult, and then so desperate to never come back on the cult. It's a little bit strange, but I'm hoping him and Bobby can get the stars aligned and bust us out before we take the Great Ascension up to meet the Talaxior alien leader. But I don't think they came here to find out that there's a gaming podcast that's actually based in a cult, one that's very near to its end game as well. It's Heaven's Gate all over again. Deep cut for you there if you've got the time for Googling it. But really the question that's on everybody's lips, including mine, and I've seen you try, one would say succeed or define my expectations by asking you,
Me.
what you been playing?
I like that one. Yeah, what have I been playing lately? I've sort of been at a loss of what I wanted to play on the AAA space, because in my mind, for some weird reason, I think I'm so deep into the minutia of video games now that I have a AAA brain, which is like my main story-centric games, and then I have like an indie brain, which are like my indie / relaxation brain of like, these are the games I play to just relax, or these are the games that I kind of like, I have an indie mindset on, and these are the games I'm like, oh, I expect the highest of polish and the highest of AAA like quality here. So I have on the indie side, Factorio is the game I've been playing. It's the most George game I've ever played in my life.
Yeah.
Have you heard of this, by the way?
I have heard of Factorio. I'm very intrigued by Factorio. I'm very intrigued by the multiple hookup automation of Factorio. And, well, without any further ado, I'm agag, considering this is what you would call a retro game, considering how long it's been out. I'm agag at kind of, am I a gag or am I a gog? I don't even know anymore. I'm going to say I'm a gag at this revelation. Although I believe from memory it's an indie game, so therefore in your wheelhouse.
But this is one that kind of like blew by me. Like I heard about it, and I heard that it was like in early production back in like 2019, and then I think it released to 2020, overwhelmingly a positive review.
Got a Switch release as well, Hero. Yeah, you should be happy about.
Yeah, so I'm like, it got a Switch release, and I was happy for its success, but it looked like a game that I just wasn't either going to have time for, or I wasn't willing to like put other things down for, especially in 2020 when like, yeah, when the new big boy consoles were coming out around that time. I overlooked it. And so whenever its new like quote unquote expansion just came out of like, and this really wasn't like an expansion. I think this was like free patches that they've just been given with the game. And
Okay.
people were talking about it. The Space Age add-ons for the game, to where like the whole point of the game is that you make this automated factory enough to get a rocket off into orbit and such like that.
That was my take on it.
Yeah, and then like, so what happens though when you do get the rocket into orbit? Then it starts a whole new factory of like, basically I have to protect my factory, and because I found a new alien civilization, these bugs are out to get me. So it's almost like it becomes, what is that game, Galaga? The one back in the day where you were shooting the bugs?
Yeah, Galaga.
Galaga, that's what it was. So Galaga, it becomes like Galaga with Factorio like skin on it, to where like you're still protecting the factory and you're still trying to set up like these satellites, all these different infrastructures in space, all the while like you are trying to figure out like what is in space that, you know, is going to hurt me, and how can I progress my civilization of factories further. So it's like, that's where I heard it hit a whole new stratosphere of quality, because I knew this game was already like overwhelmingly positive in Steam. That's when people were like, no, man, if this was a game that came out this year, this would probably be a strong contender for Indie Game of the Year. And it just so happened that was enough to want, and I had a gap in my schedule enough to where I was like, I'm gonna check this game out. And I regret that I didn't back in 2020, because this game's amazing. I think this is a George game of like you being able to dive into the minutia of like micromanaging a factory, and it just sounds like what I know about you.
You're exactly right. It's on my wish list, for want of a better word. And I've Switch especially. I've always kind of like seen it in the store. It's often on a deep sale, by the way, listeners. So if you want to have a little look-see, I'd check the Switch store, because it's been heavily discounted on there. But I've never pushed a button on it, and I don't know why. I think when
I give one disclaimer before you go further with the Switch part? No, it's so the developers from Woob Software Ltd. I think it's like the developers and the publishers for it, because they self-publish.
It sounds like what Pastor calls lube when he hasn't got his teeth.
Yeah, it does. When he has that lisp. But no, it's like they came out and said like the expansion patch is not available for Switch. They couldn't get it to run.
Okay, so, forget everything I said, listeners. But the base game is on there, and obviously,
the base game
with these new DLCs, maybe they feel obliged to give it a deeper discount. I haven't looked, but definitely worth checking out. Every time I've gone to it looking for. I've gone on the Switch at that moment looking for Anno Light, for want of a better word, and I found that and was very interested in it, and then didn't download it. I think the last time that it piqued my interest was during the Little Big Workshop addiction a couple of years ago. You know, at subsequent moments along the way, I've looked at it, and you're absolutely right in your assessment. It is very much my kind of game. I guess maybe I've been saving it for a rainy day, but with my current addiction, which we'll get to in what you've been playing, I think it might be surplus to requirements for now. But what else have you?
I beat Metaphor.
Actually, may I go in on that one more time? So when you're in the space element of the DLC, is your factory still running on the ground? Because
I barely have gotten to the surface of that part, but yeah, I do believe from everyone I've spoken to, like it is like your factory and your factory that's in space are succinct to each other. They're basically like two sides of the same big factory, I believe, is what everyone's describing it. So like,
wow,
it's factory 1, factory 2. You're not completely starting over. You're like bringing in some new mechanics that you've learned on the ground to the factory in space.
Right. Okay. That's that adds another level of granularity to it, doesn't it? That's interesting to me. Okay. So
that's
finished Metaphase. I can't even begin to say that right now. Metaphor Refantasio.
Yeah.
looks great. I haven't pushed the button on it yet. I probably 70%.
Did you purchase it already?
No.
Okay.
Again, it's on my list of things to have a go at. I probably suppose now with some of the things I've cleared up lately, and games that I'm replaying basically because they look fancy, I'm probably in a space where I could probably embrace it. I
wish you would have bought that instead of Astrobot. Not to say like anything.
No, mate, I'll be honest with you. So do I. Because apart from the first weekend of Astro, and I know probably a lot of people switched off when I went in like deep on saying I wasn't so keen on Astrobot's full price release. I don't think my opinion has even changed that much, if I'm honest with you, Seb. Yeah, it's a good game. It's well put together. To someone who's enjoyed from the original VR to the camera demo on original PS4 when it launched, through the so you got like a mini Astrobot in the pack-in for VR, which I think is where a lot of people kind of first stumbled across him. I then obviously got the VR version of the game, which is glorious. If only that would get a VR2 port, it wouldn't even take that much work, Sony, if you're listening. And I know you are, because friend of the show, Shuye Hoshida, who I don't know if this is in the news section, but is stepping back full time and retiring. The show and him have history, I must add. I think you need to go back and listen to the WASD live episode if you want to know the backstory of what I did to one of the industry greats. Probably not my finest moment, if I'm honest, but it happened. Why that's not out yet, I don't know. It would have been a very easy cash grab and probably could have formed, although it would be a little bit of a sly dig in the bones, but would have formed a great VR2 launch title. But what do I know about gaming? Hence why I do a podcast, probably. But yeah, I kind of felt like I'd seen all his tricks already, and that was bore out the deeper I went into Astrobot. So I'll get there with it eventually, I'm sure, on a cold, wet, rainy day when I'm probably feeling less miserable about my life. Maybe Astrobot's for optimistic gamers, and I'm a pessimistic gamer. And really, I'm a glass half empty kind of guy, and therefore Astrobot, nah. If I was a glass half full kind of guy, maybe I'd be like, whoa, Astrobot, I love this little guy. Let me see him jump for the 6 millionth time. Just as funny the first time as it was the last. Okay.
Have you, perhaps it's like you're over the genre of 3D platformers? Because I think I remember you saying you went super into Odyssey as well. Like you liked it but didn't love it. Like it was alright.
For me, I'll be honest, like the pack-in Astrobot and the VR game that we got historically. Now, again, I must preface this by saying I'm slating it, but I do recognise that it's a well put together game.
Yeah,
I do recognise as a pretend industry professional that this has got legs to be game of the year, and versus the competition, one would imagine it's going to be a very strong contender. I totally see it. Is it for me? Not in this moment. And you say about 3D platformers, and maybe I'm over the hill with them. I grew up in an era where the N64 was the number one console, and it was full of these games. And it feels very much like a game from yesteryear. Now, it's been done very well. And there's kids out there that have never played a 3D platformer, so they think this is amazing. And you're right, great link up mentally there, Seb, with my takeaway with Mario Odyssey. And by the time I was done with it, I was done with it. If someone had come in at that moment, ejected the cart out, and burned it in front of me in some sort of ritualistic ceremony, I'd have clapped them.
So, I think that brings up an interesting question here. Like, do you feel like there would be a upcoming like 3D platform that would be of interest to you? Because like
Donkey Kong 64 getting a release on the Nintendo Switch Online N64 portal would be about the only thing right now that, and I do believe that's imminent. It would be about the only thing right now.
But that's more of the nostalgia of like replaying that game again, right?
Absolutely, it is. I'm not someone who went deep on that Snake game that came out, or wasn't someone who went deep on that ukulele game or whatever it was that came out. I'm trying to think what that snake game was called. It got quite the response when it first came out, and then I think that maybe some reviewers didn't like it so much, and it struggled in sales. But there was a snake game.
I know what you're talking about. It was like black, yellow, and red snake.
Something like that, wasn't it? It's probably going to be called Slithered or something. You know what these software houses are like. It's going to be some snake-based gag as a name. Probably Snake Tail or something similar, right? Either which way.
I remember what you're talking about. I just, that was one of those games.
One of those great games that didn't even stay in the zeitgeist for long enough to get remembered, but was positioned as the next coming of Jesus. Yeah, we've had a few of those in our time on the show. It won't be the first and it won't be the last. I do believe that Snake game was in Ray's boot. Proper series one moment probably, but somewhere in the early 20s episode, I think it was in the boot. So yeah, no, I'm not into that. I'm not into really any of those. Yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily know if there would be any 3D platformer at this point in time, because I don't think you were huge into Sackboy, right?
Sackboy, the original Sackboy, aka Little Big Planet, I do have a little bit of time for because it's got the creative element in it. 1, 2, and 3 I thought were pretty strong efforts. I discount the karting because it's cash in at best. But the Sackboy Adventures, that was a late PS4 game. I say late PS4 game, PS4's still going, so let's call it an early PS5 game, aka joint release, Sackboy's Big Adventures or whatever it was called. Could have fallen into that formulaic route, and admittedly, it's not my favourite game of all time. That would be a big ask of any game, but I think what I liked about that was the way at that moment it was utilising the music in the levels, and the way the music interacted with the level I did actually find quite entertaining. Not enough to finish it, absolutely not. No. I don't think it was ever a game that was...
Snake Pass. Yeah, I was racking that brain. Snake Pass. Yeah.
Snake Pass, yeah. That monumental game. God, I can't believe that's probably had more airtime than it's ever had on any podcast in the history of man. But, who's the developer?
2017. You said who was the developer of Snake Pass?
Yeah.
Let me see. Sumo Digital.
Oh, that's right. No words left in me to talk about Snake Pass here.
Sumo Digital is, man, like they dropped Sonic Racing.
Yep.
And then they dropped the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game and Snake Pass.
Yeah.
Those were the 3 big games.
Are they gone now?
And they did like Sackboy, Big Adventure.
Yeah, that's it. They did
Sackboy, a Big Adventure. This last Sackboy. Yeah.
Which, weirdly brings us full circle back to what we were discussing. So, seemingly, I am a massive fan of 3D platformers. I shall make sure I apologise to Pastor and pay the penance for my crime.
So, were you a Dragon Age person, in the past?
I dabbled with. I was a Mass Effect guy, right?
Okay, yeah.
And I dabbled off the back of Mass Effect type in the what was billed at the time. If you read concurrent media from that time, Dragon Age was billed as like the fantasy Mass Effect. And that bore fruit in the dialogue tree. It bore fruit in the
bio-awareness of it.
The bio-awareness, the action battleness of it all. It rang true. But the fantasy's got to be my kind of fantasy. I'll take any sci-fi. I'll munch it down happily like a cereal, like a starving kid eating cereal. But fantasy needs to be my kind of fantasy. And Dragon Age was a bit too meandering, and I wasn't too keen on reading in-game lore to fill out the backstory. I find that can be a lazy storytelling option if you're not careful, and prefer to see it handled in a different way. But
so the reason why I asked is because I've been playing Dragon Age Veilguard, and I love Dragon Age, and as a long time fan of it, I'm coming with the grips. I think you and I had a chat about this.
I think we talked about this offline, didn't we? In a private moment, yeah,
for sure. Where I feel like this was a game that it's not Dragon Age in its DNA, it's Dragon Age in its IP, though. It's sort of like the way you spoke about Yakuza, Like a Dragon, Like a Dragon, the original one, where like they completely deviated from what was the original DNA of Dragon Age, but they made it into a massive appeal. I think this is a good game. I would recommend this to you more than I would to a traditional Dragon Age fan. This is a high budget action adventure game it plays very similar to God of War with some of the especially Ragnarok.
Straight away, I'm going to tell you now, if that's how that's getting presented, I want nothing to do with it.
I can understand that.
Even though you could argue I balked at BioWare Dragon Age, I can't quite get my mouth around swallowing Ragnarok Dragon Age. I think that's a bit of an egregious step for me, if I'm honest.
I can understand that.
I can see why they did it. I do think that, those games are slightly alienating to the wider mainstream. But then in our same conversation, we talked about how Dragon Age flips from like a action battle turn-based system into a fully fledged beat 'em up, for want of a better word, or action RPG, call it what you like.
Yeah.
And then on the inverse, we've got Yakuza that ditches the action battle or beat 'em up, basically beat 'em up in RPG clothes.
Yeah.
And then comes masquerading itself as a JRPG. They've both crossed paths. I don't understand it, but one has wider mainstream appeal, and the other one went from beat 'em up to JRPG to attract wider mainstream appeal. I find it quite odd that it actually worked out for them.
Yeah, it worked out for both companies.
Exactly.
Yakuza Like a Dragon, I think, outsold a lot of the other Yakuza games, and then this is the highest-selling Dragon Age game.
I don't think I've said this on air before, but I think I've said it in private. Yakuza was my private little secret all the way up till Like a Dragon. And then everyone was playing it. And did that take the specialness off Yakuza for me? Yes, it did. But it also cemented their decision to go JRPG because they went, oh, well, we went JRPG. So now we've got all these extra big fans, right? This is great. It solidifies the decision-making process, right? So will we ever see it come back? Just to dip into my what you've been playing, Paul.
Yeah, for sure.
I've been playing The Man Who Erased His Name, the superstitial episode between Like a Dragon and whatever the new one's called. I forget. Infinite
Wealth.
That's it, Infinite Wealth. So I thought, well, I need to get to Infinite Wealth, so I'm going to have to put myself through the process of playing this. And
you're actually going to play through Infinite Wealth?
Oh yeah, I'll get there. It'll get done.
Wow, you didn't like a Dragon like that. You felt like it was a chore though.
Oh,
this is more like a Dragon.
And well, the annoying thing is the man who changed his name is Beat 'em Up Yakuza with the added twist of the lightning lasso. I mean, I've seen some stuff in Yakuza games, Seb. I'll tell you now. I've seen some crazy ass stuff. And I know it's not real. But accepting that Kiryu has a light lasso I'm so grateful for the beat 'em up element back. I was like, this feels right, it feels good. Yeah, grind on, mate, get this done. Oh, wow. Oh, it's a cash in, they're using the Like a Dragon City. But that's fine. I'll give them that. I'm going to give them that. Because, to make a superstitial DLC, it would have been a bit egregious to remap a new town or whatever. So I'll accept this for what it is. But then when the Light Lasso came out, I was like, oh my God, do you want me to hate this franchise or what?
You didn't like the Wonder Woman lasso?
What a ridiculous thing to put in a Yakuza crime game, a crime soap opera for the longer listener. That's exactly what Yakuza is. It's basically a Japanese gangster soap opera.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I'm Connor.
And I'm Jeremy.
We're comedians. And what's worse, we're comedians who love to talk about video games. Yikes! We host a podcast called Super NPC Games Club.
On this book club style series, we discuss games like Super Mario 64, Mass Effect, and Pokemon Yellow, covering them chapter by chapter to ensure that no line of goofy dialogue or moment of developer perversion gets missed. I'm looking at you, Sonic Adventure.
If you've been dying to hear piping hot takes about the little hat Mr. X wears in Resident Evil 2, then this is the podcast for you.
So check out the Super NPC Games Club anywhere podcasts can be found, and empty your belly because it's about to be full of laughs.
It's weird though because it's also silly. Like Yakuza, at least the way.
Oh,
like,
it is silly, and I know I'm picking hairs, and I'm like, oh well, like Lasso, and then some, partner remind me that but George, Yakuza is also the game that's got this, and in it. It's also the game that's launching a pirate spin-off.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I'm like
a zombie spin-off. It's also the game that launched an historical samurai spin-off. George, what are you talking about? You're right. It just feels very odd. Although I do enjoy using it. So that's what I'm going to say on the matter. I've really thoroughly enjoyed grabbing them. I had a similar move in Yakuza 6 or maybe 5 and 6 where you can swing a bit to clean house. And this I use in a similar way to back enemies off a little bit to buy me some time, because one thing I've noticed even in the early stage of the game, they are not shy of swamping you with a lot of enemies. But it's been enjoyable. So, you're right. Maybe these games need a mix-up every once in a while, and maybe the hardcore, if I'm a hardcore fan, I don't know what to describe myself anymore, but maybe the fans don't know what they need till they get it. Like that classic quote of, we got to mix it up. Because if Like a Dragon I'll be honest, if Like a Dragon had been a beat-em-up, I think I would have enjoyed it more.
Oh, I'm the opposite. But yeah, I understand that completely, though. I think the main problem with Yakuza as a series right now is this: it feels like it has an identity crisis to where it doesn't know what it wants to be yet. It's like,
mate, it's got an identity crisis. It's been an unsurprising success, so now it's getting milked on every pantheon possible to milk
every
a game
6
on.
months.
Exactly, and I feel like they're very close to either eroding that game down to a point where no one cares anymore, or at least from a continuation of the IP point of view, and also from a new prospective buyer into the IP.
Yeah, for sure.
I think they've almost, if they took a break now,
oversaturation point,
or total oversaturation, considering the actual playtime of some of these games, if you want to do everything, is life consuming. It is to trot out a yearly or almost 6 monthly game from that franchise right now feels like a big ask. And as a fan, you want to support the product. As a fan, you want to show Sega that, or RGG Studio, that you care. But they're making it very difficult for me to show them right now. A little bit like Sony with all their products that seem to drip out of them like sweat from a fat man on a treadmill. Ultimately, they're companies that are here to extract revenue from us through the medium and the product of a video game. So it's only right and proper that they try and get as many out as quickly as possible. But with that mindset comes an erosion in my mind of maybe not quality, because you can't argue that, but a definite...
The luster is not there, like it
the
feels like
it's not there. Yeah. There's so many retreads of the old systems that now seem to be solidified and baked in since Like a Dragon, that now it feels like, okay, well, it feels to me now like we're stuck with this.
Yeah.
For time immemorial. And long-term fans, I presume, I've not actually looked to see if there's a Yakuza Reddit. I'm sure there is, and I'd love to...
You're going to get lost in the weeds, man.
Yeah, I'd love to get stuck in there with, maybe other long-term fans as to whether they think this is great or not. And I don't know whether I'm the quiet minority in my kind of, not dislike, but certain, definitely very high annoyance that you've taken a franchise I really quite enjoyed, that I still enjoy, that I would enjoy more if you just left it where it was. It was great then to provide a game that was a palate cleanser, but I'd prefer it if I choose my own palate cleanser and they just give me the game I want. So, who am I? It's interesting to see that you've had that same problem with So have you
Dragon
quit?
Age, yeah.
Have you quit Veilguard now, or is there potential?
I've gone back. I'm kind of like lightly playing it, but not like super invested in. And that's a shame because I normally I've devoured the previous Dragon Age games. This one feels like it should be made for me, but not feels like it's made for me. And I think it's a mindset thing of like I'm also sour and petty that I didn't get the Dragon Age game I want because this is like
I know that feeling.
Yeah, it's the main. It feels like this was made for the mainstream audience versus made for the hardcore fan base. It has
question I have.
Oh, go ahead.
Quick question I have for you. You said it's Ragnarok-like in its implementation of the everything, from what I can work out. Does that mean
not quite
right? But is it locked to a Dragon Age? I don't think you could ever maybe call open world. But is it in an open world map or is it locked on basically a linear journey? If you fight X, you have a conversation tree that can go one way or the other, but ultimately you're ending up at location B regardless.
No, so I think this is how I say it's like Ragnarok. To answer your question, like the gameplay and the fact that like it is very almost like combo based in the way like like you can juggle enemies in Ragnarok. You can you would have like these companions that were with you, whether it be Atreus or like some of the other companions you get along the way, and you can tell those companions to at certain points do moves to kind of like combine like what you're doing as well, which is very anti Dragon Age because Dragon Age is more strategic.
Like Atreus, you utilize these people in the way you'd utilize Atreus in Ragnarok.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Like,
okay, yeah.
And then you have, I wouldn't call Ragnarok open world. I would call it it has open areas. So
yeah, that's what I wanted to clarify.
Yeah, so like Ragnarok, you via the tree. I think you go to different areas that were already there, and it's
that's
like
right.
You can go to any part in that area as long as you had like the abilities to basically unlock different parts of that areas. Like whether or not it'd be like the spear that you eventually unlock, or whether it be like some sort of ability you get. Dragon Age is very similar, and of like you can go to different areas and you can go to any point in those areas that's generated. So, but it's not an open world game. It is open areas. So it's like it gets to have its cake of saying we have open world esque-ness to us, but it's not technically an open world game.
It never was it? But I wondered if in the modern age they could get away with it. It sounds like they are.
Yeah. This one's this one is the second lowest rated Dragon Age game, but it is well received enough sales wise as the highest selling Dragon Age game. But it also has like the writing that reminds me of an MCU movie from Phase 4 and Phase 5. So it's kind of like it's campy, but it's also like it has funny quips. It has like semi-memorable storylines there. But if that's not what people play Dragon Age for, like it has the bio-awareness of like some of the Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 era to it, but it also has like MCU like action adventure moments. And so like it feels like a game where they had like a checklist, so to speak, of like, well, what do people like nowadays? They like the MCU movies, they like Dragon Age, they like MCU movies, they like God of War, they like a little bit of like tongue in cheek, they like base building type mechanics, they like a little bit of romance, and they like solving a
little bit of romance, Seb.
Yeah, and they like solving a world-ending quest, and they were like, okay, now put that in Dragon Age format, and they put that in a blender and put Dragon Age IP on top of it, and this is what we got. And for a lot of people, it's working. I think like
is it digestible to you, or does it taste like dog food?
Like, you ever had a smoothie that you didn't quite, where you were trying something new, where the smoothie isn't bad, but it's not like, you almost wish you would have got the flavors you really liked. You kind of stuck to it.
So you've gone in, you feel a little bit fast and loose. Someone behind the counter's kind of seen that look in your eye, maybe you want to step outside your comfort zone. So the recommended Chilean acai berry.
Yeah.
About 25% of the way through the cup, you've vommed up in their face. Is it that bad?
No, I don't think it's like vommed up in the face. It's like it's flavors that you don't necessarily love, but it tastes okay.
It's
And you
drinkable.
and you can see how this would be good to some other people, but it's not, because it's not the taste you wanted or the taste you were like craving. You kind of have like, man, I have a bad impression of this.
It's very similar to when I helped Pastor drain down in the night and I got a little bit of something that I wasn't expecting, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, for sure.
It wasn't gross, but it certainly wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah, I think like the best equivalent I can possibly put of this is like, you know, a lot of people were expecting more of like an action adventure game from Star Wars Outlaws, but it was a lot more stealth game than what it
Outlaws, the best game. It's the best game. Beautiful game. It's probably my favorite game.
Yeah,
Okay,
but you get it though. It's
I do.
But you get it though. It's like you love Star Wars Outlaws, and you know, like for a lot of people, they say like, "Oh, it's a good game." For you, it's a great game, and you know, like Dragon Age, I think is a great game to a lot of people. But for hardcore Dragon Age fans, it's probably just we're, one, happy to get any Dragon Age at all because it's been so long. And then two, it's like, this is good, not quite what we want. So it's not technically on that great level.
I think that the video game companies now are willing to take an IP that they know's got recognition in the marketplace, Dragon Age, right? Even FIFA players heard of Dragon Age at some point in time in their gaming career. And I think it's quite easy to then, that's something, Dragon Age recognizability is something that you can attach a value to in an Excel spreadsheet. Add all the other stuff in and you end up creating a game by numbers. And that's great, because what you're trying to do is attract, you just want as many sales as possible. So I think a lot of developers now are trying to make these things so multifaceted. Like Star Wars Outlaws is a prime example. What do people like? Stealth. Oh, let's put that in. What else do they like? Shooting guns. Okay, let's put that in. But it doesn't mean they're the best bedfellows. And I think getting Dragon Age out there the way they have, it's been at detriment. I always believed that Dragon Age had a very thin wedge of people that were actually behind it and buying every single release.
For sure. It has a hardcore fan base.
It has a hardcore fan base that's actually very small in terms of its buying of the product. They're there. They're doing the cosplay at the local con. They've got a mural. They've probably got a tattoo, but there's about 5 people. Now,
it's a niche audience. You know,
it's a very niche audience. Now, they could have brought out Dragon Age 4, but if they brought it out to the people that had bought 1, 2, and 3, it would be, in the modern era, a financial disaster. Okay, so they needed to do something that flipped the script, that made a casual go, oh, do I get the new COD or do I get that new Dragon Age? Because I remember liking that on 360 back in the day. I think that's what they've gone for. And you've got to wonder, is it insulting to long-term fans, or is it at the benefit of the company that makes the game and the gamers the wider gamer market, and also then retrospectively good for the original Dragon Age fan, because at least it's put Dragon Age back on them. I don't know. It's
a weird sticky situation, because what you're saying is how all the Dragon Age fans feel, like, of like saying some of them do like this game. I don't want to say like no Dragon Age fan likes this game, but you know, like this game has to do well enough because BioWare was on its deathbed. Like if this game would have like collapsed on its face after Anthem and after, you know, BioWare's recent failures, then BioWare might be dead. So
Agreed.
Fans really wanted to come out and support this game, which is why it sold well. Because like if BioWare dies, there's no more Mass Effect, there's no more Dragon Age, and you know, like people love those type of games and love those types of studios.
Yeah.
Is it what we envisioned, what we wanted out of like Dragon Age? A lot of people would probably say no, but you know, at least it's one, some Dragon Age, and two, those like the developers in that studio, more importantly, are still alive. And it's like a tricky situation because like if you're an OG Dragon Age person, you probably want this game to do well enough for the studio survive, but not well enough that this is the new model going forward. You know, like
I totally agree.
It's
exactly
weird.
like I've got going on with Yakuza and probably countless other franchises.
Yeah, for sure.
I kind of hit the road a little bit with that with the new Final Fantasy when it went to the sort of Devil May Cry juggle type fighting mechanics. So, like, I felt like the series is peaking 13. The Chrysalis was great. The fighting and the timed sliders for fighting gave it that immediacy of a. I'm going to say a beat 'em up, but not quite. But it certainly put pressure on you to make a decision because in JRPGs you could put the controller down, make a cup of tea or coffee, come back, and then decide what you're going to do. 13 didn't give you that moment. It was like, right, make a decision because the slider's on countdown. So, I better come up with something good here. And I thought that was enough pressure and enough change to make JRPG relevant in the modern era, but obviously that didn't stick. They took the turn in 15 to the kind of Devil May Cry style fighting, which sure. I didn't mind because I enjoyed everything that surrounded that a lot, but maybe didn't like that element of it as much. But obviously when the next iteration came along,
16 and 7
I kind of discount. It's dead to me. 16 I'm saying it. Saying it. Go milk another cow, guys. Just capitalizing on nostalgia. And you can see the ever-thinning, again, referring to ever-thinning wedge of returning sales. As we get the different interstitials come along. It's obvious. People are caring less. After that initial, like, I'm playing through that level I played through when I was 12. This is great. I'd like to see the completion stats for Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1. I bet they're low. And I bet they're even lower for the second one. And they'll be even lower for the third. And I think, for me, that's an important metric they'd need to take away and think about. Because is it because they spread the butter too thin on the bread? Is it because that most people have never finished Final Fantasy VII past the first 4 hours and therefore that first interstitial part that we put out is good enough for them to scratch that itch? They're not going to finish this, so who cares? I don't know. It'd be interesting to.
I wonder the relevancy of the IP in 2024. Like, I honestly, I don't think kids growing up now, I don't think care about Final Fantasy. So
look, Final Fantasy Remake was never for kids. It was for frustrated 40-year-old men who probably haven't, felt like they were king of a video game since they had no responsibilities and lived in their mum's basement. I think that's people like me, right? Someone sat there on YouTube now. How dare he speak about gamers like this? Well, don't worry, don't panic, Ted from Arkansas, because I'm that guy. I've drank the Kool-Aid. I'm the full paid-up member of the living in your mom's basement and not losing your virginity until you're in your mid-50s. I'm that guy. I am that guy.
Yeah, it's weird, but I do want to get back to the question of been playing, George, because we do have some news stories we want to talk about in this episode.
Yeah,
so
classic you and me episode. It's going to be 8 hours long, and we're only just getting to the news. So tell me, what more have you been playing, sir?
That's pretty much it. Nothing else is really relevant at the time. And I'm today they announced that, a lot of press aren't getting early codes for Indiana Jones. So that's normally a bad sign. A bad sign.
Hang on, though. You say a lot of the press. Some of the press are getting codes.
Oh, for sure. You gotta. I imagine the IGNs and GameSpots of the world are going.
Is the UCB getting a code for this? Can you confirm or no?
I do not think so at this time. I'll have to talk to Mr. Indy and last name Jones about this, but as of right now, I don't think so. It is day one Game Pass, so there's that excuse as well.
I think we've done probably, we do terribly well.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that kind of, that would normally be a point of very much concern.
Do you want an early code for Indiana Jones? What's your anticipation for this game?
No, it boils down to this. If other outlets are getting codes, what did we do wrong?
Okay. Yeah. You're the kid who just wants the lollipop because everyone else got one.
Well, I want you to have the lollipop. I don't plan on playing.
Why do you want me to have to play Indiana Jones?
I think
That seems more of a punishment to me.
Listen, you were the person that said only 40-year-old virgins will buy this game, and you're absolutely right. I think that needs to be on a T-shirt. I think to think that an 8-year-old kid is going to be asking for Games Pass so he can play Indiana Jones, it's not going to happen. The wheelhouse for these people are the people that grew up. Now, it's interesting stat because Gen X grew up with video games. And Gen X probably still forms, bizarrely, the bulk of people that actually still give a rat's ass about single-player story-driven games. I think if you flip that metric to the 16 to 24-year-old, they want online gaming and not that bothered about what the old man plays, like Ragnarok. No, it's old man's game, you know, Indiana Jones, proper old man's game. You can hear it now. So it seems strange, the IP's got some value, and it's interesting that Microsoft decided to take it on as an IP of their own, within their own wheelhouse. Now, obviously all the Microsoft news about that going multi-format, and that's not the topic of conversation here. I want to frame this up. I want to frame it up this way, Seb. Look at you drinking with your pinky out.
It's the only way to do it, man. Gentleman style.
I love it. I did.
That became I don't remember what I saw like as a child, but there was like some movie that I watched and the guy had his pinky out the whole time, and I'm like, I'm adopting that. And for years, it just became a habit now.
I love it. I got to doff my cap to an American gentleman that drinks with his pinky out. A bottle of soda as well.
I have this is only the finest of apple juice.
I love a bit of apple juice. I used to fight it. I hated it for so long, and I realised that I actually really loved it. So, there's a revelation for you.
I do too.
I want to frame it up like this. Ubisoft has the ability to launch on multiple platforms. No problem. They are a software developer. Microsoft obviously previously was locked to its own ecosystem and its own consoles. Now, let's frame it up like that for now. But if Ubisoft struggled to get what is
a bigger IP off the ground.
I was going to say, not arguably, but the bigger of the 20th Century Fox Lucasfilm stable off the ground and get the recognition. Indiana Jones has got to do one hell of a run out the gates just to get past that. And then I start to think about, even if that goes multi-format, much like Outlaws was, I am struggling to see that game recouping its marketing budget, which will be equidistant to its development budget. I don't see this game
being profitable. Yeah.
I'm not going to argue that I don't think that maybe people like me might enjoy an Indiana Jones game, albeit first person. I'm not going to deny that. And I actually think that, if they get the source right, this could be a good game. But is it a good game for that 8-year-old kid? No. Is it good enough to get that 14-year-old kid off Madden? No. Is it enough to get that guy off Call of Duty? I just don't think it is. And that's the audience that you're fighting for. Now, you either build it for less or you accept that it's going to be a long-term return on sales. But how do you guarantee a long-term return on sales from Games Pass? I saw some pretty damning sales figures the other day, in terms of Xbox's penetration of the Series S and X in the worldwide marketplace versus the aging but beautiful Switch. And obviously, the white powerhouse is the PS5, which up until recently was the lesser powerful console to the Series X. And I mean, they hit everything out the gates that one would imagine you'd need to hit. We've got the most powerful console. Check, big bill, we got that. Awesome work, guys. Xbox Division doing great. You got some IPs. We're working on that. But we've got this Indiana Jones thing coming out. Right. So everybody needs to play this for it to work. That's right, big bill.
So Xbox has kind of stumbled over the years. And I think I do question leadership there. And I do question top level decision making skills because totally. And I don't mean to take shots at people. I know their jobs are kind of hard, but it is, for one, no one shows up. It doesn't matter how good your console is if there's nothing of demand to play. Yeah. You have to have something of demand to play, which is why I think if you have Spider-Man on the other side, God of War on the other side, Uncharted and such like that, people show up because that feels like a must. That feels like watching Game of Thrones, The House of Dragon on HBO, The Last of Us on HBO versus Netflix where you might watch a reality TV show in Cobra Kai. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
nothing on Netflix feels like it's in demand that people stop and say like, oh my God, did you watch that? No, it's like,
but the thing is, what I've struggled with over the years is it's actually really hard to get someone who's in the Xbox ecosystem to take a step out for a moment and have a look what they've actually got and what they've been given and what they're living and dealing with. And I sometimes think to myself, wow, you know, I don't know whether you're in that deep in the ecosystem that you don't look out, but you know, I remember in the past as a youngster, I had an Xbox and I used to look over at the PS2 and be like, wow, they've got some great games and games that aren't even ever going to get published here. And the same's true now on the Series X. Like, yeah, we've got Games Pass and I've got more games than I know what to do with. But a lot of them I've already finished. We've been down this road, but...
Yeah, for sure. So I think that's why the sales of Xbox have been like almost I think they said like, I think I read the other day, it was like for every 3 PlayStations is sold an Xbox, whether it be a Series S or a Series X is sold. So it's almost like 3.5 to 1 odds there. But
I actually think the metric's gone up since that was mooted, yeah.
Probably so. So, you know, like, I think a lot of people are saying, well, if I'm not getting what I want out of this console and ecosystem, I'll just go to where I can get it. More so than, like, there are the diehards that are still going to stay Xbox loyalists. But, like,
and there is for every franchise and platform.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I'm like, but I do feel like people go wherever, like, the most popular, the most successful things are. Like, you know, for a better analogy here, it's like, there are people who are going to argue to the death that iPhones are better than Android phones. You know, like...
Exactly.
There are people who are just going to argue that. They might have some logic behind it. They might have no logic behind it's a brand and it's popular behind it. But people like to go where they feel like the value is. And Xbox hasn't proven that they have the value.
Well, it's almost the difference, I suppose, between going into Walmart and buying yourself a Samsung TV or a Sony.
Yeah, for sure.
Versus, I don't know, Tech Corp. The Tech Corp's got better specs. The Tech Corp's a better price. I don't know what I called this TV anymore. The Tech Box or whatever I said initially. Right, it's got this, and this. It's got VRR. It's 8K. It's 120 hertz. It's 400 quid. The Samsung, exactly the same features or maybe less, is 600. Yet more Samsungs walk out that store than Tech Corp TVs, and I kind of get it. You know what you're getting with Samsung. And although this TV is arguably better in specs, I'm sure, you know, someone's done a deep dive. This TV is great. And it objectively is. And you say the same for Xbox. No one's buying it.
Nah, which is why I wonder. So this is a cool conversation to have because, like, if you heard our episode last week with me and Scotty, where everything, like, Xbox is moving to the marketing campaign of everything being an Xbox. They showed the commercial of like a fridge, a switch, not switch, but a Steam Deck, a laptop, a phone, and each one of them has a tagline. This is an Xbox because they're trying to move away from the ecosystem of a box to creating an ecosystem of a brand of saying anything you own with internet can be an Xbox now. I think it's brilliant, but I think it's also a defeatist mentality of saying, we can't sell consoles, so, you know, we can't win by the rules that have already been established, so we're going to change the rules of the game, and we're going to try to win that way.
I mean,
or at least do better
let's take that to its extreme form. They've spent a hell of a lot of money in the acquisition of Activision and Blizzard. A hell of a lot of money. And what they're saying now is that we're going to see the remuneration on those billions through people playing COD, Warzone, on their washing machine. Big Phil, just stop and think for a moment what you're actually saying, because you're killing this brand. And I, despite, you know, my current sort of playing habits, am an Xbox fan. I was there on the OG box. I was there for the 360 day and date. I got the first one in the launch window. But the 360, in the end, killed my enthusiasm for the brand. Now I skipped Xbox One, but I've got a Series S and an X kicking around that I can lay my hands on at any moment. At any moment. Have I used them? No. No, I haven't. And
It's crazy, isn't it?
That's pretty telling. I got up the other day and I thought, I wonder if the new flight sim's out. And then I sat back down again and thought, no.
There's a lot of craziness behind Flight Sim, man. A lot of craziness.
Hey, but I just want to quickly. What's this news you got here? Is this news? Are we news ready? Because I wanted to.
Yeah. I wanted to pull this up because, like, what we were saying was kind of cross-correlating with some of the news stories we had today.
Okay. Well, just quickly, if I may be so bold.
Yeah, go ahead.
While I've been off air, I've acquired a PlayStation 5 Pro.
No! No! George.
2 out of 3 ain't bad. The VR is dead, although I have some hope because I saw a diving game the other day, which was giving me great vibes. I shared it on the show's Discord, the trailer. I was like, this has got kayak vibes. I'm into this. There's a reason to dust off the VR too. The Portal I fought hard against. I was like, I don't see the point of it. I think it's a waste of money. I'm not getting it. I don't want it. Then it launched and I started to see some things popping up on Reddit and thought, maybe I'm not thinking of this the correct way. So I thought I'd take a risk and got one. And I have thoroughly
Are you loving it?
Yeah, the Portal's a great bit of kit. You know, the news last week that you and Scotty covered so well was a stealth drop of the cloud gaming as well. Which I thought was pretty cool. I thought it was a good way of doing it, that the way it was dropped. I wouldn't say it was a stealth drop per se, but it was as close as you can get in this industry. And I thought that you guys handled that really well. And, some solid salient points raised about that. And I think that further adds gravitas to the requirement that a Portal actually makes sense in the modern world.
Yeah, for sure.
Way more than I initially gave it credit for. I think if you go in the time machine and listen to some earlier episodes, I was ready to lose my whole life over, I'd lost my, just everything. Like, Tony, why are you wasting time on this remote play device? There's already backbone out there. You're wasting time. I was wrong. I was wrong on that. I was wrong on the VR2 being good, although it's still a great bit of kit. We're still waiting for that killer app. Some can argue maybe we got it in Metro. I would say, no, we did not. And then PS5 Pro, I didn't see the point. We haven't pushed PS5. I was wrong. I think we actually, in fact, I have said on a few episodes, the reason these new the benefit of these consoles not making any fan noise is also a great benefit of hiding the fact that probably since day one, they've been up against a brick wall of, well, we know they have. They're up against a brick wall of 30 or 60 FPS, and that's your lot. And you have to pick either poo-poo graphics on your next-gen console or good graphics and a slideshow. That's not a choice you want to be presented out the gates on your big purchase. PS5, I have to say, takes all those problems away. I have a 60 hertz telly. I don't have a 120 hertz or VRR, but ever since I bought this TV back when it first came out, it's a Sony set. I haven't had a console that's maxed it out. I now have a console that makes this TV damn near cry, and the enhanced visual quality that you get. And this is the other problem I think they've had. I saw the videos of the Pro on a 480p or lower on a mobile phone screen. Seeing the difference on a interlay or on a compressed YouTube video was going to be difficult. I actually think this is also going to prove difficult for all console generations moving forward, past 5 Pro into the 6 and whatever Xbox gives us next. The ability to showcase to you the visual updates, because they're going to be small going forward on YouTube, is going to cause a little bit of fan upset because it looks crap. But in reality, Seb, I have to admit, I've enjoyed the greater draw distance. I've enjoyed the what feels like enhanced load times. I've had lots of fun playing the remastered version of Horizon. I've damn near finished that for the 3rd or 4th time. It looks great. And
can I ask a question though? Do you feel like? So one, did you keep your old PS5?
Of course,
or did you trade it in?
No, I'm not into that. Not anymore.
Okay, so you still have two both PS5s, right?
I realised how ridiculous that sounds when you say it out loud. Up until
Haven't
then,
gotten there yet.
oh God, it gets worse. Okay, as you were.
So you have both your PS5 still. I want to ask the question though. To me, like I wondered. Here's the big question a lot of people are going to ask: has the incremental differences of like the draw distance, the visual amplifications, the I guess you could say the load times.
Let me answer this right now in the best way I can. Absolutely not. But let me preface that.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there and when I say absolutely not, I'm saying it this way. If you already own a PS5 and things are a bit tight, do you need to upgrade? Do you need to upgrade? Absolutely 1000% no.
Okay.
Or the alternative though is this. Do you play your PS5 a lot? Okay, answer to that question. That take us to the next one. Yes, I do. Okay, do you want the best version of whatever it is that you play whenever you want to play it? If the answer's yes, there's another yes in the camp for the Pro.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you like new stuff? Yes.
Do you like new stuff?
Do you like new stuff? Yes.
That's honest. That is very honest.
Do you want the improved form factor? I was surprised by how much smaller the Pro is than the base Launch 5. It's tiny.
Okay.
So I've suddenly got way more room in my setup, and I've got much better ventilation for the PS5 Pro, only because it's that little bit smaller.
That makes sense.
Do you own? I don't. But if you own a 120 hertz TV with VRR, that's another reason why you need PS5 Pro. Okay, if you've got one of those TVs and you've got a base 5, yeah, you're going to get some value. Don't get me wrong, but the Pro's going to make that TV sing like a freshly born songbird. And if that's what you're into,
then go for it.
Absolutely go for the Pro. But Sony never said PS5's dead or not very good, therefore everyone's got to drop everything and get the Pro. No, they're not saying that. They're saying there is a higher value option out there if you want to go for it. Will it hold you back in your enjoyment of the games to stick with your base PS5? Not at all. Here's another metric for you. If you skipped, now I think, based on my experience with the PS4 Pro, I think a lot of those initial Pro users probably looked at the PS5 and didn't see a visual upgrade that was worth it. I know when I went from Pro to 5, I was underwhelmed.
Okay.
So if you have been sitting on the fence waiting for a reason to buy a PS5 and you've got a PS4 Pro, or you've still got a base PS4, if you're transitioning from Xbox or Nintendo, or just deciding to get a console and you go down to the shop tomorrow,
yeah,
would it make sense for you to get a Pro? Absolutely it would. Absolutely it would, because it's going to take you potentially midway to the PS6 gen without needing to upgrade again. Just depends when you put that money in as to when
for
you
sure.
upgrade, right? So it's a multi-headed beast. Is it essential like oxygen to get a PS5 Pro? No. Is it essential to get a PS5 Pro if you've got a PS5? No. But if all the other answers to the questions are yes in the sort of tick boxes I gave you to this point, and you are well enough off
to actually afford it, yeah, then it's a good buy.
And not be Hester feeding your kids or paying your mortgage or anything like that. But if you've got the spare money, or alternatively, if you trade your base PS5 for cash or sell it on a local selling site, I think the demand's still there for the base console. And then use that money to offset the difference between what you've got and the Pro, also a yes for you, So
Okay. It feels to me like the iPhone 14, 15, 16, 17, whatever we're on now, whatever iPhones are on now.
Yeah.
The base model versus the premium, the ultra would be.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, again, mate, that's a great example of the split between the two products. Like if you bought an iPhone 17, right? Is it functional? Is it usable? Has it got good graphics? Yeah. If you buy the 17 Pro, does it have all of that? Yes, it does. But does it have a little bit more? Yeah, it does, but you're going to have to pay for it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I feel it's the same with the Pro. Would I recommend someone go out and buy one tomorrow just for fun? No, that would be crazy.
You're knee deep in this ecosystem as well, though. You know, like a lot of people
did scare me a little bit when I got the Pro. It was like, oh, crikey, I look a little bit too all in here for a multi-format show. I need to be careful. But
no, you're a PlayStation shield nowadays. You know, you got
I am.
Yeah. At this point, with the
Right.
Portal and the VR,
well, if you've brought any news that's not solely PlayStation, because this is now a PlayStation podcast, I've decided. No, I've not. I don't think that's ever right, because often gamers have multiple systems. For sure. You do. You've got the deck. I've got Series S and X. I've got PS5 base and Pro. I've got remote play on this gadget and that gadget. I've got a Switch. Like, yeah, there's news there. There's stuff there. One last game I've been playing, and I'll make it very short, so keep that music on the screen, is I've been playing City Skylines.
It's a Seb game right there. What, 1 or 2?
Number 1.
Okay, gotcha.
I've had it in the library for ages, and I thought, do you know what, this is pretty good to have slumming on the Portal. And I've somehow looked into a remastered version of 1. And that's not necessary, but, you know, it does make things a little bit prettier. I like it, although I've worked a couple of things out now, and it's not difficult, that game. Once you work it out, you can just build whatever you like without really too much stress. It doesn't have the outside threats like Anno.
No, for sure not.
It doesn't have the kind of conquering elements to it of Anno. Anno is primarily a city builder, but with conquering elements to it. Naval, I hasten to add.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm enjoying it, and I thought this would be an almost abyss-like hole I would fall into. But within about, don't get me wrong, I hadn't been mucking around, but within about 24 hours, I realised that I'd probably gone as deep as the game would let me go. Everything else was going to be doing different prettiness around the town, and if the town's working and the tax revenue's coming in and you've given them everything they could ever wish for, does it matter if there's a tree there? Not really. Here, have a pre-made park instead. Boom, problem solved.
Yeah. City Skylines is an interesting thing. I equivalent to being a cozy city builder. Like, you know,
that is great, because you're right. I should have seen it in that light, actually, Seb. Ever the illuminated man, but it is. I was thinking it was too easy, but you're right. It's a cozy game that really, with some sim elements, just allows you to build your dream town. Damn it!
Yeah, so it's more. I equivalent to being more of a cozy simulation versus, you know, something like Frost. And Civilization, different things like that.
It's at the raw edge of cozy, I'd say. I wouldn't say it's not a comfortable pair of slippers, but it is maybe a fleece-lined jock strap.
There's never any, like you said, there's never any external threat that would just like jack everything up and take everything awry. You are your biggest enemy, because like if you don't manage your money well, you know, like everything could go.
The worst damage I've done to myself is getting too greedy too early on the tax, and people kind of like leave your town. It's like, now I'm going to have to drop them even further down, get even more in debt just to get them to come back. And now if I put them at 1%, they're done. Like, oh God, what am I going to do? So yeah, if you don't go into the tax screen, it never becomes an issue. But if you do, things start to unravel quickly.
Here's a cool trick about that. Like, turn up the tax like 3 or 4% and hit the fast forward button. And when they start actually getting angry, drop the tax right back off to where it was. You don't have to drop it back below where it was. Just drop it back to where it was, and do the same thing with businesses, and do the same thing with the industrial, and back and forth and back and forth. Hit that fast forward button, and like in 20 minutes real time, you can make like 10 grand, like 10 grand to spend something on. And as your city grows,
do you know what? There's times early game where 10 grand's a lifesaver.
It really is. It really is. But
let me tell you something now. I've currently got my city to the point where I'm raking in. It's still only early days. I haven't filled every square, far from it. I've probably only populated a third of the grid. I'm raking in 4,932.
Oh, that's good. So have you bought any expansion territory yet?
None.
Okay, that's perfect then. You're in a good place. Have you unlocked the metro system yet?
I've unlocked, what I find quite odd about the public transport is I've unlocked public transport, but its utilisation, it's probably too soon to put it in the city, but its utilisation is so low. I deleted it. I deleted it from the city. I was like, no.
It won't become a thing until you add more stops, and I think your people, your town population actually gets super high. I'm greedy, what is it, Scrooge McDuck? And so So here's my strategy in getting money fast in the early game. I make it industrialization is huge in the early game unless you make a very highly educational town super quickly, which is very hard to do on a budget.
That's damn near impossible. Yeah, especially if you're going through the not skill tree, but the way the advancements trickle down to you. It's hard to have the cash to. And you don't have access. You get access to elementary school, and then there's I don't know if it's free DLC or what, but then you get the community school, which is kind of like a halfway house high school. But you also need you
got the community school, the public library, and the elementary school, or the. But
then they have spin-offs like Institute for Arts, which is an alternative high school. Then they have community school.
Forget about that one. Don't touch that one. Touch the Institute of Technology one. And that one's really good. But here's another trick of the trade of if you're playing City Skylines and you feel like you need money early on, or towards the middle point, make your industrial point in a different map or a different zone than your live point. Not only because the health wise is
I'm all over it. Even when I first started playing industrialization, the sewage discharge, the industrialization, and if I went, traditional power generation and not, cutting edge modern tech.
Yeah, for sure.
I grouped all that down right at the bottom of the map away from everybody. Because that dirty brown cloud, it does my head in.
Oh yeah, that's the sludge. The toxic waste in the sludge.
Yeah, the water gets all pooped and the air gets all dirty. It's beyond real life, as in it's ridiculous to see.
For sure. Make sure the water's downstream in the game, by the way.
Oh, mate, I'm all over that. I had this really great setup where I kind of picked up in this kind of holding reservoir that had it filled with the river, and then round the river kind of comes down and then all the way up the side, and my discharge point, this is classic George, I've got the discharge point as close to the map, you can't build this, you don't own this land point, as possible. So the discharge actually fires out the map.
That's funny. That's so funny.
And my water, even there, would be totally clean for drinking, but I pull from the other side of the island because my guys deserve the best. And
absolutely.
I'll be honest with you, I'm Manhattan, and I'm firing all my sludge and discharge straight into Queens. I love it.
It's their problem to deal with, but no,
it totally is.
So as soon as you get the tollway available, make the tollway put 2 tollways on the path of between your housing and the industrial points.
I was thinking of putting tollways. You know where the map kind of hard creates a highway.
Yeah.
And then you have the 2 feed points. I was thinking of making it a toll to get in and a toll to get out. If you don't like that, then stay. I
wish I could show you one of my maps that I built a while back. But I did that, but then I removed the entry point into my city of like, like there's 2 points that dip down into your city from the highway.
Yeah.
Remove those suckers and make a new road from the highway that gets into the city, and it's a one way. It's one way, and then make another one that dips out into the city, and it's a one way. You have one way tolls on both of those junctures, and then you jack up the price all the way up, to $3 per trip, round trip, and you could like easily get $15,000 off of those 2 tollways.
Perfect. Hit me up with this fresh news, you sexy hunk of a man.
Okay, so this one, which one are you seeing right now on your screen?
We're seeing the Deadpool, Transformers, Spider-Man, and other Activision games get mysterious updates on Steam.
Oh yeah, this is from Men's Journal Pursuit, written by Rahul Majumdar. Yeah, sorry,
I'm going to call him Majumdar because
Majumdar. That's a good one.
It's an M.
Yeah, Majumdar. Okay, so something's happened with Activision delisted games on Steam. Several games published by Activision that were later removed from the store have been updated on the back end with updates as recent as last week. This includes updates to games and their DLCs in the class titles like Deadpool 2013 version, Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, Transformers Fall of Cybertron, and Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Proof of these updates can be seen on SteamDB and the free database that keeps track of Steam backend content. It's the same database that showed us that Valve's unannounced hero shooter Deadlock had attracted over 15,000 players. According to SteamDB, these updates have seemingly added new content to the storefront, like store screenshots for one, and they've added, many more additional content right there. So George, I brought this story up because like a lot of people were crying, moaning, rightfully so, that, Call of Duty was basically the sole eye in Xbox's, vision regarding the buy of Activision Blizzard. And they were complaining that, when are we going to see some of the
Do you know what
games?
I think's going on here? It's nice that you frame it up through the lens of Call of Duty not getting an update yet. These damn near 10-year-old games, in fact, decade-old games are getting an update. My first thought when you brought this up, and I saw the games mentioned in that second paragraph, if RGT, and sadly RGT can't be with us because they're breaking the fourth wall for a mate. F's in the chat for RGT. he's put his back out, and he's not a young gentleman anymore, so it's just taken a little bit of time to bounce back. But if he was here, I'd get him to run the numbers, because last time I dipped into this world, and I hadn't dipped into it for a while, but I think the Transformers Fall of Cybertron and War for Cybertron are rapidly accumulating high volume prices, or high prices on in the UK, especially secondhand. I'd imagine Devastation probably is. I think Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions has always been quite an obscure game that people are willing to pay money for. I think off the back of Deadpool versus Wolverine, there's been an uptick in the value of that game. And considering for a free update that they can lob out with not too much in there, and I'd like to see the update list of what was actually changed, because I shouldn't think that much. They've offered people on Steam a chance to get this game a lot more affordably, and more importantly, allow people to double dip on these without worrying too much about having to acquire a PS3 so they can play that or get their old console out. Here is a cheap alternative to games that shouldn't be rising in value, but bizarrely actually are. Do you think that's the take they've done here? Someone's just done some quick maths and gone, if we get James the Work Experience Boy to bang out a couple of patches, we could maybe get some more revenue. Because with an update, does it bump it up the Steam listings? I presume it maybe does. It's certainly got some attention shone on it through mensjournal.com.
Yeah, this site kind of circulated through all the major sites. My theory is, George, I think Activision, aka Xbox, aka Microsoft, is trying to get these games ready for Game Pass and for reselling purposes as well. Like, I think the updates that they were talking about, the new additional content, is basically like screenshots. It's basically like gameplay captures. It's small minutia things.
It's storefront prep.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's modernizing these games in a way to where like they are ready for modern day consoles. Not necessarily.
I also think that the price has prompted. I think that's absolutely correct. I agree 100%. But I also think these games have become slightly harder to acquire, and therefore, if they dropped on Games Pass or Steam tomorrow, people are probably looking to take advantage of, a software only price.
Yeah, keep in mind these are delisted games right now on Steam, so I think they're going to relaunch these games. Maybe
more to my point, because there are games in their back catalogue that they haven't breathed back onto the storefront.
Yeah,
it depends how long their IP lasted on these as well, because that's got to be a consideration. Because if you're going to prop Deadpool back out, a game from 2013, did the licensing contract allow you to continue with that whenever you like, or are you going to have to pay again for the license, or is there a peppercorn deal where after 10 years, if you're still selling these, we only get 0.1 of a cent back?
It's got to be something that makes it profitable for both probably Disney and for Xbox here. So I imagine like there was probably some back end, like very low percentage.
Who the hell on God's green earth is buying these on Steam? I for one, will throw my weight behind the Transformers Cybertron series. I think it's great. We never got that third game we deserved. Not in the way we wanted it anyway. There's some argument to say that third game ended up being a film tie-in, but it was awful. And it certainly wasn't a continuation of that series. But those two, I liken them to Space Marine in their play style, the PS3 one and maybe even this latest incarnation. Full of spectacle, grand scale, very much for the Transformers fanboy. I pre-qualify as one of those. I'm a Gen 1 advocate, and these games played straight into that wheelhouse. The fact that they had the Cybertron forms as well in the Seekers and other things made this game very much of interest to me. The fact that I think in the second game, Metroplex makes an entrance and he's huge and he wrecks house, and
maybe you sell them as packs. The Transformers packs, the Marvel, the Marvel collection. I have no idea what the strategy would be. You'd be surprised on how well old retro games, what quote unquote retro games, do on Steam. And I think what we were talking about earlier about Xbox's strategy of like, this is an Xbox of them. This is a good way of like bolstering the catalog without having to do very much for Game Pass, because that's their ecosystem right now. I thought it was worth noting that,
I think it's interesting. And if you haven't played, I know that Deadpool is meant to be a pretty good version of a Deadpool game if you want to get in there. But the ones that I would want to throw my weight behind and recommend to anybody listening, if you haven't played them, depending on age, because obviously you need to be in that Indiana Jones pre-discussed age wheelhouse to find any satisfaction in Fall or War for Cybertron, I'd imagine. But if you're in that wheelhouse or slightly intrigued, they are a fun while away of probably 4 or 5 hours per game. Thoroughly enjoyable. If you've got a younger sibling or a son or a daughter and they're kind of half interested in the new Transformers series or the Prime film or the One Prime film that's been out recently, I actually think there's some mileage there. A lot of these films are also tied to, obviously, things that are doing reasonably well in the cinema right now. If you think about it, Deadpool, Transformers, Marvel's always up to something, isn't it? So Spider-Man 2. So I can see why they might have wanted to put these up. The only ones I can get behind, as I said, was Transformers, but whatever.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I figure in January it is Game Award season, and they like to do like announcements during Game Awards, like Xbox specifically announced the Series X at the Game Awards show. I figured that, this might be a small announcement that they kind of tease to people that they're doing something with the old Activision back catalog.
Bit desperate if that's their news for the Game Awards, but okay. People paid millions to get a trailer on there. We're going to rock up with the trailer for Transformers, dude. I mean, come on.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So I want to move on to this. The next news story here. I think I'm gonna choose this one right here, George. Balatro. Have you heard of this little game?
Are you still under contract to Balatro, or is this your own volition?
Yeah, this is on my own thing. The contract ended a while ago, so take that for what it will. So I want to, the reason why I want to ask this, like, speaking of Game Awards,
where's my share of that part of the contract, by the way? Or is that
I'm gonna hook you up on the next
bonus?
Contract.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, fine.
So here's the thing, though, George. Have you heard about the controversy around the Game Awards about like the games nominated specifically for Game of the Year?
I very much have, yeah, and it's bizarre that like December's come around this quick because at the beginning of the year with the way things were slewed up, it felt like we had a few games out there scrapping for some attention for Game of the Year, but as we get to December, I don't feel like much of that's borne fruit. And I presume you're referring to the Elden Ring DLC.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
right in that wheelhouse of Game of the Year as a piece of DLC. I'm in agreement with the majority here, although it does speak to what feels we've discussed. At least for the last 3 months, I think, between you and I, about how this year has ended up being like very lean compared to what was alleged to be the best year in gaming ever. This year rocked up and it's been a bit dry, Seb. I see the controversy, and I do think Star Wars Outlaws probably would have been better suited. I'm still under contract. Seb, I know. You got to see out your Balatro deal. Let me see out this Ubisoft shill deal.
My bad. Go ahead. Make the money.
It's Game of the Year in the Ponzies, by the way. I can't wait for that episode. Every year we have our own award ceremony called the Ponzies.
It'd be interesting.
If Star Wars Outlaws doesn't win, there is no show. So you better come up with a prize for it to win.
Okay, gotcha.
Game after launch of 2024. That might be.
Most updated game might realistically be the award it should win. But the reason why I brought this up, so Game of the Year, the Game of the Year awards for everyone listening, it was very controversial of like what was actually nominated. It was, I believe, it was Astrobot, Wulong Fallen Dynasty, Wulong. It was
Elden Ring.
Elden Ring. Shadow of the Erd Tree. It was what was the other one too? Metaphor, Final Fantasy VII, and Balatro. So those were the games that were nominated for the Game Awards for Jeff Keighley's Game Awards show that happens at the end or midpoint of December. So
Jeff is also a friend of the show. He used to be on it in the early days.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of. We actually sent a group of people to sit in his garden.
Hey man, that's as good as
any other show. You'd be like, that can't be right. But we did have a mobilized, almost military unit that was stalking in his, basically kind of hiding in his garden. It was quite the story.
So George, like the reason why I brought this one up is like, I agree with a lot of the majority that I don't think Elden Ring should have gotten a nomination. I think it should have got its own category for
best
game
DLC.
of the best DLC or best expansion.
That's
I think
totally fine, and it would be a deserving winner. I'm not a massive fan of Elden Ring, but I would say it'd be a deserved winner of that category. Although Train Sims got the East Coast pack of the UK that I think would probably outstrip it, but it's very niche. Very niche.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why I thought this story was relevant to what's going on is because, like, I would have loved to see another game get the shine, because ever since Balatro got nominated, it jumped up in sales after receiving 5 nominations for the Game Awards. The title has earned $727,000 over the past week alone since the nominations came out. Oof. Do you know what that game could have done? Like, don't get me wrong, Elden Ring has already had its time in the sun. It also made a boatload of money, and still making money, I would say. Do you know what this game Do you know what this game's nomination would have done for another game? Like, this could have turned the tide around for Prince of Persia and the narrative around Prince of Persia not doing well. You know, that
Did that
700
come out this year? Because I felt like that was a 2024 game.
It is 2024 still, George. But yes, it came out in January of 2024. I get what you
I
mean.
meant to say 23, but 25 is fine. I don't know what universe I'm living in, but I'm in a flying car right now, as far as you're concerned.
So yeah, January. I believe it was January. Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Tekken, and Tekken and Prince of Persia all came around the early January, February time, and those games reviewed, really well, especially Tekken. Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth was around 89, I believe. Tekken was around 89.
Where's Infinite Wealth?
Infinite Wealth's not on that list, and I think like that reviewed. I'm gonna be honest, but like what really surprised me, Balatro is in the 90s, no surprise there. But like, Black Myth Wukong is the lowest rated game to ever get nominated for the Game of the Year awards.
It'll win.
You think it'll win?
Look, based on the fact it's there with such a low Metacritic review score, not that really matters.
It's got an 81 compared to...
I would say we dispatched OG Tom to play that and provide some feedback on that game. And as he said in the El Paso Tapes episode, he sees no reason to continue with it. And that's rare for him. So there's something not quite right about Black Myth Wukong, in my humble opinion, for what it's worth.
I think it's a decent game. I think it's a good start of a series.
It's a decent game. It's maybe a good start of a series, but it's not Game of the Year contender.
No, not in any world should Black Myth Wukong be on there and Elden Ring be on there.
No.
But imagine what $727,000 in sales, a sales boost would have done for Prince of Persia. That would have, after the year they had with Star Wars slow sales, with the year they had of like Prince of Persia coming out and doing a nothing burger, and that studio going kaput because of that. That could have saved that studio's life, at least helped that studio come back from that. Tekken could have used that bump. I would even argue some indie games like Animal Well was really popular earlier in the year.
Animal Well is a way better entry than Shadow of the Erd Tree.
Yeah, for sure.
120%. But I think that when Jeff's putting this together, he's got to fill the room as well with people that are paying for tables. Let's not forget this is an award show. Well, what's an award show, George? It's just a record. You may think an award show is just this free gratis event to bestow accreditations where accreditations are due for producing a great piece of software, but that's not the case. If anyone thinks that an award show is solely existing for that reason, you're badly mistaken. This is Jeff Keighley's cash cow. Think how much people pay to get an add-on. Think how much people pay to get a sponsorship deal. Think how much, because of the penetration of the product and actually how recognized it is in the industry now. Yeah, it was the right thing to do to go out there and make, you could argue that the BAFTAs are actually the true Oscar of the video game award, or the Golden Joystick, or some other stuff that they've got going on. But Jeff Keighley's
Golden Joystick's a little more fan voted, so I would probably say more. I would probably say BAFTAs and DICE. DICE is one that's like very industry voted. Yeah,
the BAFTA's definitely an industry voted thing, and a friend of the show, Mike Rouse, is a BAFTA judge for the game. Mm-hmm. So he's given us a little bit of insight in one of his episodes into the process behind it. But no, award shows, they are basically just cash revenue generators for whoever is the all-seeing eye behind the scenes, and the all-seeing eye behind the scenes of this award show is the mighty Jeff. Yeah. Is it hard for him to sell tables if the games that are nominated for the Game of the Year are a couple of two-man indie teams? Not that these are, but you catch my drift. You need EA to rock up. You need Ubisoft to rock up. You need Sony to rock up. You need Xbox to rock up. You need Nintendo to rock up. You need these large names to take this industry award seriously, and you also need them to turn up en masse at $5,000 a ticket per table, per chair, or whatever it is, to pay for this shindig, and also allow Jeff to live the life of luxury between December and November. each year. So
There's
a
also
political element to
thing.
these choices, big time. And I think there's also a mainstream box ticking exercise of what do we put in here that someone's going to recognise and get behind. A tree, put a From Software thing in there, because if you go against From Software, you're not a proper gamer. Balatro, quite deserving of its position. Astrobot, based on its Metacritic, certainly not mine. Although I get that though. I can see the window which that could be positioned in for sure, and therefore ergo equally welcome at the table.
I would have preferred Helldivers 2 over that though. At that point,
I would argue that Helldivers. That's a great point. I would argue that Helldivers 2 has ended up, although it burnt bright, but for probably quite a short time window. But while
it burned too fast.
Alive and burning, it did remarkably well on sales. It reviewed probably equidistant to Black Myth Wukong. Its influence on the industry far outweighing Black Myth Wukong's God of War sort of From Software light version of itself. I think that the narrative is, if you got in a time machine and came back to this year, the talk around the water cooler would be of Helldivers moments. It wouldn't be of Black Myth Wukong moments.
Can I read I'm gonna read a quick snippet of like a couple of games that received higher Metacritic score just over Black Myth Wukong that probably could have used this. Dragon's Dogma 2, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Pal World.
2, Infinite Wealth, yeah. Pal World. That...
It took over for a little bit. Animal Well, Helldivers, Warhammer 4000, Tekken, Stellar Blade, and Dragon Age.
Stellar Blade, dude.
Yep. And The Legend of Zelda's Echo of Wisdom, all reviewed higher than... Oh, and not to mention Silent Hill 2.
I was going to say that in the preamble. Maybe it was too late, but then again, we've seen late entries make it into the game the year before.
No, the cutoff was like Silent Hill came off 3 weeks before the cutoff, and to equivalent that to last year, it came out around the same time Alan Wake came out, and Alan Wake was nominated. So but anyways. Moving on to another story, because I think that's interesting.
What do you take on the awards show actually behind the scenes being a cash revenue generator, and therefore all of this needs to be taken, not our opinion, but the nominations need to be taken with a pretty chunky bit of salt.
I think first and foremost, people need to reframe the award show as it is an award show, but it's not like... I don't think it weighs as heavily as, say, like IGN Game of the Year of like GameSpot, of those heavily credited sites. This is more of a winter showcase of games that also like part of the industry internationally votes on, and 10% of that is the fan vote. So it's almost like it's more akin to a all-star weekend for sports than it actually is an award show like the Oscars.
Yeah. Add that to my rather cynical cash grab element, and the award show starts to look a little bit not great.
No, for sure not. Last story, because I know we're running a little long here. Sony's making a handheld console to compete with the rumored Microsoft handheld console and the upcoming Switch successor. This coming from The Verge from Jess Weatherbad.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if this is news per se, but a couple of people have been sneaking around on LinkedIn and found some references to a name that could be, I think it's Timeless Travel, I think is the name, the working name for Naughty Dog's next IP that's alleged not to be Last of Us, although I can see this being a Last of Us game, but let's for a magic moment it's not.
I think the two different projects, though.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. And obviously also... oh, God. I couldn't get his name out of my head. And now, who's the voice?
Troy Baker?
Troy Baker's signed on. There we go. Boom. In fact, bring that up for me, Seb. Let me feel like Joe Rogan for a minute. Bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. Can you read this right now?
Yeah, I can. Troy Baker confirms he's in Naughty Dog's next game. Director Neil Druckmann says it's the most excited he's ever been for a project. Just see if it references that LinkedIn post.
Let's see. I see the variety confirmed. It more than one. Not this one, but I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah, okay. So there's a reference to the IP name in. I think the LinkedIn very quickly got changed, which always puts a laser focus on it being pretty close to the mark, if I'm honest. Because if it was just drivel, why change it? Try like LinkedIn leak or something along those lines. It should bring it up. LinkedIn, Naughty Dog. I think maybe it's called Infinite Travel or Timeless. It was something along those lines. But I thought that was probably worth bringing up. It's only a little bit of there you go, Timeless Travel. So I had remembered it correctly, unless that's not what I was saying at all. But yeah, I find that to be quite interesting. It's also referenced, I think, in the job description that it's an open world title, this Timeless Travel. So more leaning towards. I know when they made Last of Us 2 initially, it was meant to be an open world game, more akin to like either Zombie. I think the game called Zombie that was on Wii U and found a release on PS4 and Xbox from memory. They wanted to almost be like a roguelike adventure where you kind of tried to get a bit further each time. Obviously, that wouldn't have worked in the Ellie and Joel narrative, so there'd be even more people upset that Last of Us is about Ellie and Joel. Neil Druckmann says it's not, and you'll find out within the first 15 minutes why. But yeah, I can imagine that probably didn't go over too well from the merchandise sellers. But I'm interested to see what comes of this because obviously Druckmann's gone on record. He says we don't want to be known as the Uncharted Last of Us studio, so we don't want to, constantly. The problem in the modern day era is if you come up with a hit, you're expected to farm that until it's literally dead and no one cares about it anymore. And I think it's quite good that he said we don't want to be that, and that they're indulging themselves with
trying something new.
If the story of this being a sci-fi or fantasy epic come true, and all the evidence seems to point to it being so, that's brave. Right, when most of your audience are sat there with a hand out saying Last of Us 3 or maybe Uncharted 4, this is brave, super brave. To get people to care about new characters enough to buy this game is brave. To put yourself behind the production values of your games to this point in an open world, super brave.
To be fair to Naughty Dog, yeah. They've done well at reinventing themselves throughout the years, though, whether it be from Crash Bandicoot to Uncharted to Last of Us. I think like Jack and Dexter, that they have done a fantastic job of like evolving throughout the years and challenging themselves in different ways.
All that evolvement took place before 2014.
That's true.
2014's the line in the sand to me where the industry changed. To the sequel-driven world that we live in now, much like the movies. I'm going to make a film based in Rome. Call it Gladiator 2. I know, but I'm going to struggle to link this back to the original series. Gladiator 2 will sell. Get it out there. Oh God, this is going to be horrible, and it was. So this is brave, and I like it. It's either a sign that Sony's got faith that the Naughty Dog name has grown beyond the IPs and will sell regardless, or Naughty Dog themselves have maybe stumbled across the idea that their name is larger than their IPs and it doesn't matter where they put it, it's going to sell. So, yeah, a little bit of news there that I found interesting.
PlayStation is also in a cool spot to where, like, outside of Concord, anything that they've printed, anything that they've done recently has kind of like printed gold in a lot of ways. Like
it doesn't matter how clean your underpants are on the day that no one wants to look at your underpants, but if the day that someone wants to look on your underpants, you've got a massive skid, that's an issue.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, so what do you take of the handheld story about PlayStation?
Going back to the handheld, I think that we talked earlier in the episode, and it's nice that everything's framed up this way, that the success of Yakuza and hopefully not for you, the new direction for Dragon Age was born through. And also framed up nicely in the fact that I talked about my love of the Portal in its current guise. BTW rumour on the mill, and we don't do leaks and rumours here, that a refreshed cosmetic update of a black-only Portal.
That'd be sexy, man.
Once you've gone black, Seb, you never go back.
That's what I heard. That's what I've heard.
And always bet on it, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think that that could be that again is worth noting. But I think again, to go back to it, the success of the Portal has in some way reshaped their lens onto needing to have a console. Either a console that splits like a Switch, and by that I don't mean that the Joy-Cons come or offer anything daft like that. I mean that it's dockable or it's handholdable. I think I wouldn't say it's taken them by surprise. They've got a hell of a lot more metrics than we've got access to, and I'm sure that they could see the writing on the wall of this being potential. Now, I'm in two minds. Are we going to get a dockable PS6?
Nah.
Or are we going to get a PS6 and an accompanying handheld that will allow you to play those games, albeit pared down considerably, I'd imagine. I think if we got a handheld from Sony that was anything more powerful than a PS4 Pro, obviously you can wash the specs around, it depends on what tech's available at the time, but I can't see this thing being affordable as a handheld and packing PS6 or 5 technology. I see this being affordable as a handheld with the ability to play the PS4/5 in some way classics library. I see this as this handheld could also be a great gateway drug to your PlayStation Premium content. Let's face it, they sold a lot of Portals in last week off the back of people being able to play that without the requirement for a PlayStation console.
Yeah.
Technically rendering, I would say, the Portal, depending how you want to look at it, a standalone handheld, albeit with the caveat you need Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I agree with mostly everything you're saying. I do think like the games that it's going to be able to play is going to be substantially beefier than what we imagined, because like the NVIDIA software and the AI software that they did with the PS5 Pro is going to probably be the PSSR, and even then more advancements into like bridging that gap of like fidelity and resolution with AI. I think is going to be more advanced in the years to come when this hits the market. So I do think like we'll get to see. Let me just Last of Us Part 3. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, but it depends if this is going to be a true handheld, and therefore the handheld itself would have to be doing the PSSR heavy lifting. I mean, technology moves at such a click these days. It's hard to say, but I feel like the price point on the chips
could be a lot, but the price of technology might come back down.
Having to buy the screen as well. Factor in the associated board and HDMI out and all that other ramble. This thing could end up being quite complicated, Seb.
I'd say about $350. I think $350 is an easy price for them to be able to do.
You know, I know people are going to book against this, but we've seen that the PS5 Pro is £700 or thereabouts, right? And get ready for that. If that made you feel poorly, guys, the PS6 is easily going to be $800 just to prepare you right now for that. There is no way it's going to be less. So
I think, the crazy thing is like, if that happens, Xbox has a huge opportunity. Because it's the 360 and PS3 all over again.
It might well be, but I can't see it. And unless Xbox are willing to lose money on the consoles they're selling to bring people over at that point, and let's face it, they're probably cash rich enough to do that. In fact, it probably would have been better for them to spend their money on a war chest to do the consoles at 50 quid than it would have been to buy Activision Blizzard, because the games are going to be on your console anyway. Nice work, guys. But you've got it now, and then have had to put it everywhere. So that also is a little bit defeatist, if I'm honest. But you're making revenue, one would hope, from somewhere.
Not to mention, I think they're going to come out before the PS6. Like I think the next Xbox is going to be next year or the year after.
Yeah, that's why we didn't see an interstitial machine.
Yeah,
but it's also, if that's going to be the next Xbox in 12 to 18 months' time, which is the rumor, I struggle to see it myself, but I can see also the reasoning for. It's easy itself going to have to be $800 because it's going to have to uplift on the Pro.
I don't think they're going to go power. Like, I think based on what they had in this generation and how far it got them saying we have the most powerful console ever, I don't think that's the marketing strategy for this next generation. I think they're perfect.
So what they're leaning on?
I think, I hate to say this because, it sounds like a broken record, but like, I think the June showcase and the quality of the games is the lesson learned from this past generation's debacle. And I do like,
yeah, but how did it take them till then to realize that lesson? Because that was a lesson that they were delivered during the Xbox One era. That was kind of, I will defend the 360 and say, actually, do you know what? They came out the gates with some new IPs. Some great stuff. It's funny for me to start here, but Viva Pinata 1 and 2, great games. No, wait, though.
No, I it's actually a good game. I didn't think about that in the list of games you were going to illustrate making the point here,
Mate, in terms of IPs that I think have had value, especially during the 360 era, Viva Pinata had a spin-off TV show, blah, 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 blah. So
I agree with you. It made me laugh thinking of Viva Pinata after all these years. That's all.
If anyone was going to come out the gate swinging with the Xbox IPs from the 360 era, it was going to be me, and I was going to start there. So Viva Pinata 1 and 2, obviously Gears is a no-brainer. We saw an evolution of the Forza franchise. I think the 360 saw, the first Horizon game, if memory serves.
Mass Effect made its name on the 360.
Yeah, but Mass Effect 1 was locked. I'll give you that. It was timed. Gears of War, I think we had Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, and maybe that didn't hit, but, they've got these franchises within themselves.
Halo 3 was massive. Absolutely
Halo 3
massive.
was huge, and Halo 3 delivered on everything that it set out to do. It had massive player engagement. It was the talk of the town. It was probably the biggest IP launch to that point. At that point, great. Yeah, Halo Wars as well. It's a franchise that I think they've neglected. I think that's got a lot of legs. It's not anywhere near the love that it deserves.
That library was stacked because,
add into that things like Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon or whatever it was called, locked JRPG exclusives that are still locked to the console today. Infinite Discovery, I think, was another one. Some really great stuff. They nailed it on and delivered on the promise during the 360 era. Red Ring of Death was an unfortunate situation.
I forgot Dead Rising was among those.
Yeah, Dead Rising was a locked exclusive that I think might have become a timed exclusive.
It eventually came to PlayStation later, but it
came to PS4. But obviously we got Dead Rising 2 and 3 multi-format on everything at the time, or the Xbox and PlayStation, and I think PC.
Crackdown was big at that time.
Crackdown was massive. Another great IP that they kind of buried. Fable really hit its stride with Fable 2. I think Fable 1 probably didn't get the industry or wider recognition it deserved. I think it was a great game and a great first step. So they had it going on. And then they dropped all that with the Xbox One to be the everything box, and then dropped all that to be the most powerful console again. So what they're going back to now, Seb?
I think everything's cyclical in life, and like all these things that go out of style come back into style. We see trends reset themselves. I think PlayStation is getting to be too big for their britches. PlayStation
Agreed.
again, like what they were with the PS3 kind of era.
No,
And
I think it's PS2 era is where we're at.
Yeah, true. And then like Xbox is like starting to get closer to that. We're hungry. We're gonna take we're only focusing on the games. Like no one said at that time Xbox 360 is the most powerful console out there. It was the game box though. It was the one you played a lot of these great shooters, great up and coming IPs that people were talking about. I think like when you looked at that showcase back in June, you saw the Fables, the South of Midnights, and like the Perfect Darks. I think everything goes back into that sort of Xbox 360 era to where like you don't make the most beefy box you possibly can. You just make a box that and then put out the most bonkers premium games that you possibly can, and you do it at a clip before your opposition has time to actually come out with theirs. Because I'm like, the 360 got such a big leap and jump on that PlayStation 3. It was off to the races at that point.
That is true. And if they're looking to replicate that strategy, it could work. But the only kind of brakes I'd put on that is that the original Xbox launched during the PS2's lifetime and hit a brick wall of penetration. Basically, they'd already got market saturation to that point.
It didn't help that they also had boxes that were catching on fire and dying at that point too.
No, right? And people were kind of... Sony came out and said, we're not going to be out until 2006. People had already grown tired of what the PS2 generation could do.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you wanted to experience next gen, and let's face it, some of those sizzle reels for the 360 were awe-inspiring. Probably haven't aged very well now, but at the time it was like, my God, graphics can't get any better. We say that every generation, and then they bizarrely do. Yeah. But, it's a great place to wait, and the price point was super affordable, which meant that, I'm a hardcore Sony PlayStation 2 player. I want something new. I'm going to get the Xbox. It's affordable enough where I can ride this out and get a PS3 at the end of it. And I think a lot of people did do that. That kind of transient crowd kind of flipped from PS2 for half a gen, then flipped back to PS3 for the balance of the gen. Then that transient crowd, which 360 done well to get hold of, just got sucked deep into the PS4 ecosystem. And I think we've talked about gens to win or lose, and
they lost the worst one. Yeah,
Sony have got that many players on their system now that have either to PS Plus or games have acquired naturally on the system. And I'm not talking physical games here. I'm talking software only. Is that people are too deep now to just move willy-nilly as and when they please.
I thought that too. But then like the point you made earlier about like everyone owning multiple consoles, I don't think it's a choose one box kind of situation.
I think that we are, of the majority of players, I think people like you and I are actually quite rare. To replicate that level of investment, and it's not I've got a bigger penis than you shout, but for the average Joe, let's say you're a 15-year-old kid, you'd have had to summon somewhere in the region of nearly the thick end of $2,000 to be able to play on every system. And that includes Steam Deck. Maybe north of $2,000 if you want to have all of that. And I don't think that's disposable income for your average Joe. I think they pick a box at the beginning of the gen, and they then get behind that box and defend it regardless. They have to defend their purchase. And that's
here's why I think like what you're saying is true, but here's why I think Microsoft is combating that with their new marketing push of everything is an Xbox. Because like as a parent, it's going to be a very appealing thing to say, I don't have to buy a new box. The tablet that he already wanted for Christmas plays these games. The phone that he already got because he wanted a phone growing up plays these games. Like the TV that I bought for myself automatically comes with the Xbox app. It's like once they crack into that mentality becoming the mainstream, it's off to the races. The PC that I got him for school also doubles as his gaming console. Like, like you get what I mean? It's like It's smart. It's going to take a lot of groundwork to get off the ground, but like
I think that probably works in a pave the way for the future scenario. I think old stalwarts like me probably still want a thing that they bought to play their thing on. I think the next generation of young people coming through, and I put that marker when I say young people coming through. I put that marker at mid-20s and down. They're not overly bothered about owning something. They just want to play something.
it's the roadblock Fortnite generation. It is a very
those
different
guys
mentality.
coming through.
Yeah,
I mean, they can play Roblox on their Xbox. Yeah, they can play Roblox on the PlayStation, but they probably just choose to play Roblox lying on their back on their phone.
The crazy thing is like our market and our window, our generations are like dwindling down. Like a lot of people have less time for games and such like that.
Yeah.
So you have to go for that newer market that does have the time to play games, that does have the investment to go for it. And also, older generations than us dying off, all that kind of stuff. Like there's things there. Xbox is trying to make that investment of like, we lost the middle generation, basically the middle crowd. We're going to focus hard on the young crowd. And then if we do get to pick up some lapsed gamers here or there, it's just win share. It's capitalizing on that part of the market. We'll take every victory we can get, sort of thing. But, like focusing in, quote unquote, on the Nintendo market is kind of easier for them to gain ground share than focusing in on the what now is a hard, staunched PlayStation ecosystem.
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting point. Is a matured Switch player likely to go outside of the Nintendo ecosystem for a bigger boy game? Yeah, I think they are.
Where do you? And then that's the interesting point. Where do they want to go?
Where we're getting to. Where do they want to go?
Yeah. Do they want to go to where they can play games anywhere and it doesn't matter? Now the games may not be like the highest of quality, but they may not be cinema yet.
I guess
but
it depends.
They can play it anywhere.
It depends, I guess, on your journey to the Switch. Without, I think it's hard to do a broad brush. But if you're a kid, you grew up with a Switch. Let's say it was your first console. You arrive at the gate of like, what do you want for Christmas, little Timmy? Oh, I'd like a proper big boys console. Okay, well, we've got one at home. Switch. No, mummy, I want a proper one. Okay. I don't know which way they would. I don't actually know which way they would turn. I mean, there's logic to say that they might ask for a Steam Deck as an evolution of the experience they've been having.
As a parent, though, wouldn't it be easier for? And you're a parent, I'm not, so you have a little more different perspective than I am. I have, like, would Game Pass be more enticing than buying a lot of games for your kid over the period of time? Like that. Because, like, I have a younger nephew. He loves Game Pass because he can try everything and he can play Forza, and also
the danger with Games Pass is they try lots of things and don't actually play anything and then go back to the game that they've all been playing, which is Fortnite. And that's where
the
we're
kid's
losing
attention
gamers.
span, though. That's the younger attention span, too, though. That's what they love to do.
By giving them Roblox, by giving them Fortnite, by giving them those quick hit games, we've actually diminished. We, or developers, have taken a role in diminishing their attention window. We've actually made this worse. I mean, what's the future of gaming? 3-second games? Can you get Red Dead Redemption 2 compressed into a 3-second experience? I very much doubt it.
But here's the thing, though. Like, and so 2 points here. Like, one, Microsoft has a way of also being on the forefront of younger people's minds because we said Roblox and Fortnite. What's another game that young people have Minecraft. There it goes. They have that nostalgia for Minecraft. They have that inwards ground of saying, "Oh, I was a Minecraft person. I'll go into Xbox." On another thing, what's interesting of what you just said is like the market itself, the developers, everyone, and the overinflation of the cost of games. Everyone's telling us that they're moving closer to wanting to do smaller projects, like. Which, I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. I think like AAA becoming Miles Morales size isn't necessarily a bad thing. I just want cost to reflect the downward size.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I'm like,
and it needs to. If they still want to try out a mammoth GTA 6, Red Dead 3, similar, I actually think the upper end of that scale has shifted towards like $100.
It would hurt at first, but I would get it. But like,
if I was promised a 60+ hour game that would take me on an emotional roller coaster that was unrivaled in any other format, TV, music, film, whatever, and it was $100 and it delivered on the promise, it's a no-brainer. I think if Ubisoft rock up and think that they can charge $100 per game, that it's not happening. Rockstar comes to the market once a decade nowadays. Yeah. That's worth $100. Ubisoft's monthly / yearly franchise pumps need to be Mars Morales, where we're thinking Mars Morales type experience should be. They need to be $40 or less. And again, if they're AAA production standards, that's okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why we're seeing a hard market shift of like people in general going like, I'm not going to pay, and I'm not meaning to pile into Star Wars Outlaws here, but I'm not going to pay that much for Star Wars Outlaws out of the gate. I'm not going to pay that much for... Yeah, for the audio listeners, George just flipped his mic and just zoned in like he was Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he heard he wasn't.
And that's the bottom line because I'm still under contract to Ubisoft. What?
Yeah, but I mean that was a hard thing to swallow with Prince of Persia though. Like it's a Metroidvania game that looks quote unquote like most indie games that came to the market, and those indie games are selling for 1/3 of the price of a $50 brand new game.
Question for you on a totally different topic.
Yeah, for sure.
Do I need a gamer chair? Because I'm like legs akimbo down here like a hippie at a commune. And yeah, we are at a commune. But
yeah, for sure.
Is this a bit too fast and loose for a YouTube video? And do I need to wear a shirt and tie?
No, I like it. It feels... You feel more American right now than I do, if I'm being honest, because you got the blue jeans right now. You got it's not a camo hat, but it's kind of like it feels camo-ish, you know?
Yeah, it's the sort of cap you go skinning an elk in.
Yeah, exactly. You feel like at any given moment you could be neighbors with like Brock Lesnar in Wisconsin. Sort of, you got that vibe going on to where like you would know where Atwoods, and which is like a feed store here in America. Like you would know the location of all those in the metropolitan
I've got an
area.
account at Atwoods.
Oh, do you really?
No.
Yeah, I was about to say it wouldn't surprise me though, based on the way you were dressed right now. But no, it's one of those things to where like I think you're dressed perfectly. You have like a visual, very casual, approachable vibe. I think that's perfectly fine. And
what about this? Because I almost look like Jeff Goldblum.
I think that makes it more approachable. You know, like
that's all the audio listeners now gone. They're all YouTube video addicts now because they want to see me stretched out like Jeff Goldblum. Yeah, welcome.
Yeah,
welcome to the video. You fast forward to this point because you've already heard the rest in your car. Here's me like Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah. That's the screenshot, everybody. That should be the cover art of this episode. And you gotta like you're stretched out like Jeff Goldblum, but you also have a portal in the other hand.
Let's give them this, right? So we know that they love to mess around with pictures in the Discord. So
yeah, take
the Jeff Goldblum picture from the Jurassic Park GIF or wherever it is that you find it, and I will position my head now in screen, no breaks, so you can then Photoshop it. Hang on. Yeah. If you're an audio listener, I love you. I actually love you more than the video listener.
He really does.
But you got to give him a treat, haven't you? So just get a Werther's original out of the center console and just bear with me for 10 seconds.
I'll fill in time, everybody. He's posing right now. He's kind of got a Derek Zoolander vibe going on, where he's kind of like shifted his head to the side, you know, where he's thinking about something deep, but you can't tell how deep it is, you know. Oh, he's posing to the side now. It's almost like the bird watcher.
I want to give him choices, so when they cut and paste me onto Jeff Goldblum's naked body, you know, I don't want a digital monkery job where it's like my skin toned into Jeff's and you can see the line. I want, you know, you're going to need to club together here, boys. I think we're going to need
the best Photoshop you possibly can.
We need Finster Gamer Bada Binks to work in almost a sinuistic tag team.
For sure.
With the triple threat of that being Digital Monkery coming in, providing photos left, right, and Chelsea. If you're wondering who all these people are, as said, I think, if I may, I've enjoyed our news breakdown, but I think I need to put some brakes on it because people,
We got to tell them about the membership plan, man.
that's what we're doing.
We got to tell them about the membership plan. If you like what you're hearing, the show is always free. But if you do want to contribute to the show and let us reach new heights, help us to reach new heights, and just show your appreciation, acknowledge us like we're your tribal chief, if you will, this is where you can do it. The link is in the description below. There are tiers. What are those tiers, George?
Oh, this is so slick. I feel like a bird on the Exxon Valdez. We've got tiers. $3 is going to get you read out on every show. I mean, that's worth it. $5 a read out on every show and art merch yearly. I'm not sure how we're going to do that, but it'd be a T-shirt or maybe one of our infamous fridge magnets.
Yeah.
You're going to get that yearly, and with you an art change. So bear that in mind. $8 is going to get you read out on every show, art merch yearly, and access to the Inglorious chat. Yes, we've got a Discord. It is free, but if you're a paying member of supporter of the show, then you get a little area where you can get a hoedown going with your like-minded UCP fans. And $10 is going to get you a readout on the show, on every show. It's going to get you art merch yearly. It's going to get access to the Inglorious chat, and you're going to get your quarterly Zoom meeting with your host. Now, the first two have been ran very successfully by RGT, and I do have the second one saved on the hard drive to upload to YouTube, if that's what you guys think you would like. If not, then I can send it to you privately. I'm talking to you, Unglorious members. But more importantly than not, if you're listening to this show and you've been listening to it since day dot and you feel yourself an OG member of the show, well, I'd recommend you join the Discord. I'd also recommend to expand your value and appreciation of the show. You get in at the mid-level, maybe $5, I think is a great starting place. You're going to also get George's special bonus because we launched our support package this year and we are able to give people the ability to get an early adopter box. Now, if you're listening now, you slept on it, pal.
Yep.
All right, it's on you. But
It's too late to apologize.
It's too late to access the exclusive merch. So you're not going to get the Thelma and Louise themed T-shirt. You're not going to get your episode of choice on cassette. You're not going to get any of that. But I recognise you and I see you. Yeah, you. How can you've listened all this time and not be in the Discord or help support the show? Like
Shame. Shame.
Shame on you, but it will also be free. We know that
for
people,
sure,
rely on the show to get them through dark times and whatnot, and they never want to paywall that away. It'll always be here for you. But how can you resist for $5 getting sent your choice of art as well? So you can either do album art, Stingray, whatever show. You're going to get a T-shirt. I don't know why I said show. You're going to get a T-shirt just for signing up. You can't even go into Costco, Walmart, Primark. None of those places can you walk out with a T-shirt of that quality for that price. And you also get to support the show. And even at $3, it's less than a coffee, guys. Just don't buy a coffee on a Monday once. Next Monday, the Monday after that, you can have a coffee. But just miss one coffee and you have paid for your UCP subscription for a month. What a great deal. Anyway, all that to one side. Equally so, you don't need to pay a thing, and you can join the thousands of other freeloaders that don't support us in any way and get the privilege of the show. You're the winners. You're the winners.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate every single last one of you. Straight out the gates, we've got our wonderful Swedish. And I have to say, the amount of love I'm seeing pour in from Sweden, a country I never thought we'd conquer. We're doing great. And the leader of that charge is the immortal Cenox, subscriber and lovely person from Sweden. So thank you for that. You've helped us penetrate the ice block, which we super appreciate. Who's next? Handsome young Seb? Or do you have the list? No.
I was going to ask, is this a new list, by the way? Because I'm like, I did not see the penetration of Sweden on the list.
You might
And
not
so
have
I'm
done.
like-
So, Xenox, if you missed your readout last week, then I'm going to read out your name again. Xenox, well done. We're up to speed with each other now.
I do have the old school list as well.
It's not that old because we seem to be attracting members.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Like a 4-day-old corpse attracts flies, Seb. So next is Carlos. I don't know why I said it in that way. Let me say it again for you, Carlos. I'm getting used to some new teeth.
Hold on, George. Since you've been away, there's been a new tradition on the show that Scotty and I have started.
Oh,
You're gonna
I
have to
love it.
adapt or die.
Do you know what? Adapt or die. Fine.
Adapt or
I'm
die,
adapting
right,
on the
it's
fly. What do I need to do?
Okay, so we're reading out these names. Each name has to have a slightly different accent of some sort. These people have paid for the goodness. They have to get the goodness.
Okay, so straight out the gates, it's the one-man George fan club, Carlos, all the way from Australia. See if you can top that, Seb. Who's next?
Trestles, New York.
Okay, well, I'm going to do... Hey, it's Fem Returns.
Bada Bing Star.
So that means now then, Mayor, to your right down there's Tingle Tuna.
Digital Meckley.
Like a roast space monk, so I have.
The Gaming Grand.
I'm out of safe accents without getting myself into some form of legal trouble.
Cancellation. You make it say he's losing it, everybody. He's absolutely
We're done
losing
unless
it.
you want a low price Apu, and I don't think that's right and proper anymore. So I guess, oh God, where did we get to?
Balboa.
Board border, which means I get Boba going brown. How is Biscuit?
He's doing good. Everybody, for the audio listener, Biscuit is my 4-year-old Labradoodle.
No, it's not yours. I don't know if you know this, but I put some small print in your contract, which you obviously readily signed because of all the big books that you're getting. But you realised that Biscuit is owned by the UCP conglomerate.
He's a UCP pooch. The UCP pooch.
I couldn't say that. I tell you now. So I got going brown Boba Labour, which means you get
Mr. Marathon Gaming.
Oh, you mean like accents? Okay. So does it mean I get to see a little Master Elliot?
Change.
Good old Emma Sharp. Up the apples of stairs or the apps?
Y'all are gonna have to tell me the story about the apps, by the way, one day. All right. The
I
next
don't
one.
even know it myself, to be honest.
The next one. Harvey Retro.
Which now, according to the new way we do things, I recently found myself just outside of Nottingham. And it's exactly the sort of place where you'd expect to find someone who's nowhere near Berlin.
I heard that this person was like the Carmen Sandiego of the show. Like,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Where's Waldo? You never know where they are, but you know they're nowhere near Berlin.
That's the only thing I know for sure.
All right. I'm going to try to do my George RDT impersonation when I first learned this word. Mumsy.
I get the one-man army. RGT gets a whole fan club. Fair play to you.
All right. Pete Brocklehurst.
Which means I get the beautiful Billy Marmite.
You got to take this next one because I got to bring us home, man.
Oh, you? Oh, right. I was okay. That's in your contract as well.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
in the
get-
contract. I got to follow the rules.
So thank you to Simon Pryke.
You kind of have to do it like Big E from the New Day whenever he's gyrating.
I'll tell you what. I know that you were probably challenging your New Day persona there, but what I actually saw, Seb, and this is going to be a deep cut for you, is I saw Val Venus pre-towel rip.
Hello, ladies.
Exactly what I saw, you dirty little rat. Sex fest.
You talk about a deviant from the Attitude Era of wrestling.
Oh,
Val Venis was like a deviant, man.
It was the hand here.
Yes.
That was Val. Why did I just turn into an unmovable mannequin? Like, what happened? I just did the robot. I mean, further to the stereotype that I've got no styling and you've got all the dancing prowess.
You sort of looks like you were ready to ballroom dance, but the music started too abruptly. You know, like it was like you're like, oh, I wasn't ready. Are we ready yet?
I almost forgot that I was a multi-articulated human being and kind of locked off like a 3.5 inch Kenner Star Wars toy from 1979. That's it. It's all I've got. That's all I've got. If we've done that,
don't ever change. Don't ever change.
Fine. And we've done a good chunk of the news. I think we've covered off some of the juiciest stories this week.
Oh, absolutely.
It really gets us to this point where I ask you, good sir, what you're hoping to play.
Honestly, it's the week of Thanksgiving / Black Friday here in the US, so I probably won't be playing a whole lot of anything. I am right now, like I realized I skipped over some of the WWE 2K campaign this year of like, and I'm kind of got an itch to kind of.
Don't worry about it.
I know how George feels about the new iteration of the WWE games.
I had a couple of goes on it, and I'll be honest with you, I was so far away from blown away.
Yeah, I get that.
Dead.
I get that. The new combo-based system isn't beloved, but like it's one of those things to where like this year I'm a pro wrestling fan, and this year is like Survivor Series, like time of the year with war games, and it's sort of interesting with like the OG bloodline of Roman Reigns versus Soa Sokola, and then like CM Punk's on Roman Reigns' side right now, and all these things are going on.
I think the product's in a great place. I mean, this isn't fantastic. A wrestling show, but obviously with it going free to view on Netflix as well, I think that I feel like the brand's in the ascendancy. I don't know if it could ever eclipse the Attitude Era. I don't think it could ever eclipse what I refer to as the Icon Era. I don't know what other people call it, but the 80s,
yeah, for sure. Era. I would call that, the territorial Icon Era. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a big moment for them. Then obviously they dropped off. The product was not unsuccessful in any way, but it didn't hit those high points. And the Attitude Era kicked in, and they hooked into a zeitgeist of the moment, and they ran with it. With the penetration of the mainstream with Netflix, etc., beginning in January, I think it's on a worldwide deal. That takes WWE to places it's never been before. And I think once WWE has eyes on it, it feels the pressure to perform, and historically always has. So to me, the app was always going to be a tough sell, but getting in on an app that other people have already got, I think is
easy money.
Easy money. It's a no-brainer. And you might not see... Let's face it, you're not going to see remuneration through your TV deal with Netflix, I don't think, right? But you're going to see remuneration through physical appearances at shows all across the world. You're going to see it in merchandise sales going through the roof. If you can get that character to hit, stick, and go home. I'm talking Stone Cold towels. I'm talking Stone Cold cans. I'm talking Stone Cold drink coolers. I'm talking Stone Cold toolboxes, all that ramble. There's a moment for that again. I don't think any of the stars that they've got at the moment, and I think this is a good thing, I don't think any of the stars they've got at the moment
are transcended enough yet.
They're not on, none of them are that character.
No.
But I think with the eyes on, within that moment, someone in the roster who's probably been overlooked will rise. Because with that eyes on, you've got people never seen wrestling before, potentially.
It'll be the 360 moment all over again, because Austin wasn't like a made star. He was like the promo of like the 316 promo where he was King of the Ring. Took him to another.
Roberts. It was the kickstart of that, and I think that's really what he was already fully formed as Stone Cold in that moment.
Yeah,
he just needed the eyes on and recognition. Obviously, history dictates that from that point onwards, the arena was filled with 316 signs. And
for sure.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, they have a whole bunch of Mick Foleys, but not enough Triple H's and Stone Colds yet. And I think like once they get to those characters, it's
I'll even go as far as to say they've got Bret Hart's on the roster in a way.
Yeah, Bret Hart's they just need a Shawn. Yeah,
they've got those transitionary characters that normally go between eras. They're absolutely perfect. You know, great rest of the talent, great mic work, great in front of the camera, the lot. But the brand's dipped and it doesn't have eyes on it. But it's about to get more eyes on than it has ever had. And to me,
they got to nail that though, because the Tyson and what was it? The Paul fight kind of illustrate Netflix's limitations there. Netflix isn't ready for that infrastructure of like a live show yet, but they need to be by December.
I don't think we need to be worried about that. That was always going to get way more viewers. I think the viewer count for WWE is going to be way down on that. So streaming quality.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. WWE, apart from a quick sort of coming soon part on the Netflix, it's not broken the zeitgeist with the fact it's going to Netflix. So I think it will be a surprise to a lot of people. I think you had to have been living under a rock or dead or possibly a druid in Outer Mongolia not to know that Tyson was fighting Jake Paul on that day.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So yeah, I don't really have anything I'm hoping to play. I'll probably play a little. It's going to be casual gaming for me. So I don't have anything like big planned. I'm curious about Indiana Jones, but I'm not like super curious. And Stalker 2 just came out, and even though I was rooting for that game, it came out with a whole lot of problems, and I'm trying to wait for them to patch a lot of those problems up. You know, what about you, George? What are you
I'm going to probably tear into. Well, I'm going to play a little bit of City Skylines. I've been playing a little bit of MLB again recently. I mean, I don't dump everything on you that I've been playing. I try and pick out the interesting bits. So there'll be a little bit more MLB, I should imagine. I've been enjoying that again. I needed a break. But now's that time. Getting ready for the new game coming out, so I'll give Sony even more money.
That's March, isn't it? Like March, early February?
Yeah.
Late
March.
February?
End of March, I think late Feb. Yeah,
it's around spring training time, right?
Yeah, mid-March, I would say, I think is the release point for that historically. The man who changed his name, or erased his name, I've probably said it wrong about 10 times on this episode, so don't...
It's Yakuza, we get it.
It's already in community corrections. I've already typed it, and now they're hearing this and going, can I delete? Don't, just leave it.
We like the engagement.
Yeah, we're desperate for it, so we say things wrong on purpose. So there's that. I think I'll probably, between now and next time I record, I might have finished Horizon.
If you've got a PlayStation Pro update, so that'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said at the top, it's great. But there aren't any surprises to people who finished it as many times as I have, and that's starting to sort of come home a little bit in the third act, I would say. But initially it was great. It still is great, but it depends how many times you want to replay it.
The breaking news right now is that The Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2 has now received a PlayStation Pro update.
I thought one already had.
It looks like some of the enhanceability is what I'm reading right now. Some of the enhanceability or accessibility stuff wasn't moved over, and they added some patchwork to it. So maybe it's just a small patch.
No. Listen, I'm for it. To me, the game was working well, but if it puts back in the accessibility features for people that aren't as fortunate as you or I, Seb, I think it's a full boon. Fair play to him. I'm trying to think what else I've been sort of grinding through. City Skylines, Frostpunk. I've kicked that to the curb. It's a great game, but
it got too heavy.
It's not too heavy. It's just to play it through the way they want you to play it through. It's not as rewarding as I thought it would be.
Gotcha.
The way the skill tree unlocks or the tech tree unlocks is a bit annoying. If you want to play through the story mode, that's also very restrictive. If you want to play in sandbox mode, depending on the map that you choose, it's quite restrictive. So it's a great game, and I recommend it to everybody that's even mildly interested in those kind of games. But I don't think I could stick much on past the 7.1, if I'm honest. And maybe when it launched,
that's not bad.
It would have had a fresher, higher score. But now, in the light of some of the other games like Anno, no, it's a 7.2 at best. That's not a bad score, by the way.
No, for sure
if
not.
Star Wars Outlaws my game of the year with a 6 out of 10, then it probably tells you everything you need to know about this show. And our contracts are Ubisoft and Balatro. But that probably brings us to the end of this episode. I need to get better at being on video. Hi, YouTube. I forget I'm recording this for you half the time. I think that draws a close. Nice little bit of closing news from you, Seb. Is there anything else you want to deliver before I get Pastor to tune up the band, or?
Yeah, everybody. Scotty's been putting out good work, really good work on his YouTube channel. Go check him out at Marathon Gaming at YouTube.com.
Definitely. His latest Game Gear collection video got me wetter than a starfish in the Mariana Trench.
Yeah, so definitely go check him out. Be on the lookout. The UCP is always doing some really cool things. Check out the Discord there. My podcast, The Single Player Experience, is releasing a drop of new episodes this week. Go check those out.
Yes.
Really, really fun topics there. I want to issue out a challenge here. We're doing the Game of the Year Ponzi's Awards coming soon. I want anyone who wants to participate in that, because I want to do a fan side of that as well, and this is the perfect time for it. So if you're listening at this point and you have a game that is released in 2024 and you think it deserves to be Game of the Year, send us a special message via Discord or the Instagram or anywhere else. We'd like to make a record of that and decide what is going to be the fan voted Game of the Year for the UCP. So
great idea. I think we've done it historically. That's a nice way of doing it that brings in all the different touch points that we're on now. So we've got X, we've got Discord, we've got Instagram.
Yeah, let us know
what the YouTube as well. So if you're watching, hello, Mum. If you're watching this, if you want to let us know what your favorite episode was, you write it down there. You click comment and then you write it in. And just for the record, Mumsy, yours and I's favorite game was Star Wars Outlaws.
I think it's pronounced a little differently. You know.
Well, type it in 6 times, Mumsy.
Okay, gotcha.
Enter. That's nailed that on for fan choice. Perfect.
Did you hear the story about Star Wars Outlaws? About like them not wanting the Steam to publish how many people were playing it at one given time lately?
The concurrent playing mode. Oh, God.
Yes, they wanted them to remove the concurrent player mode. Is the story that the Verge broke earlier this week?
And we talked off air about sort of YouTube and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And to be honest, if you want to be on these platforms, you've it's not like audio where you are behind a wall of anonymity. You've really got to show what you've got. And I think that Steam concurrent users is a metric to live by in some ways, as a studio should have aspired to have the highest number there possible. And if you've got a low number, it's probably the fan base's way of saying you haven't got this quite right.
Everyone, also before we go, a story just broke not even 24 hours ago. This comes from the Inverse. Star Wars Outlaws new expansion is a sleeper hit I didn't see coming, was wrote.
I told you, and you wouldn't have it from me. That is going to be amazing.
Yeah, they're saying like the expansion content has been really good. I think it's the Lando Calrissian featured content. A lot of people seem to like that. Maybe it'll bring people back to the game.
The only reason why I'm not playing it is because I bought a PS5 Pro and haven't.
It's not Pro enhanced yet?
Oh, kind of. But that's not my problem. My problem is I have Star Wars Outlaws on physical.
Oh.
And I don't have a disc drive.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. And with that, we're going to kick it to the outro, because the only thing that's going to cheer me up is Pastor's singing voice. And that's all we have time for this week, listeners. Always thank you for your time. We look forward to the pleasure of speaking to you again next week. Until then, happy gaming. And remember, there's nothing wrong with being given an official controller. It's what you do with it that counts. See you, Seb.
Bye, everybody.
George and Seb rolling down the road. RGT riding shotgun, a heavy load.
Pastor Longhorn waiting to unfold. In El Paso, Texas, tales been told. One arm big, a sight to see. Pastor preach, set you free. George and Seb, they bend the knee. RGT nodding yes in glee. Join the cult in El Paso town, where Pastor Longhorn's got his Seb both feel the glare. Longhorn's words hang everywhere. Salvation found without a care. Sunday's hot, the desert air. George and Seb both feel the glare. Longhorn's words hang everywhere. Salvation found without a care. RGT plays a sacred tune underneath the El Paso moon. Longhorn grins from afternoon to the night, they'll see it soon. Join the cult in El Paso town, where Pastor Longhorn's got his crown. One high, the other down. We're the wildest show around. We're the wildest show around.